Chapter 1. Myra. When I noticed the lines of code appearing on the screens, I returned to my computers to look at them. I watched my computers log everything while I held my breath. Of course, they couldn't log everything, but they still managed to capture most of the information before Erica pulled the plug. This was still something, and something was always better than nothing. I chewed on my bottom lip nervously as I watched my computer log as much as possible. Hunter sat beside me, silent and watching, while Jorvik lingered behind us. His eyes were on the screen as well. When my computer had finished logging as much as it could, I got to work instantly, scanning the code to see what Erica had been up to so far. I was surprised that Erica hadn't touched much of the system. However, she had tried to open the sensitive files repeatedly and failed each time. She must have figured out that I had stored half the keys in these servers, which was why she attempted to access them. She has been trying to access the keys of those sensitive files, I told them, all our eyes glued to the screen. Did you manage to get anything regarding where she might be? Jorvik asked. I continued to chew on my lip nervously as I continued to scroll through the lines of code. There was a lot, and it'd take me some time to figure out. I needed to figure it out before Erica could be alerted and take my servers somewhere else, or even worse, she does something to them. No, I can't let that happen. Not yet, but I'm looking, I answered. I'm sending it all to our team and we'll have them look through this as well. We need to be quick, Hunter said, grabbing the second keyboard, and I nodded silently. We were all thinking about the same thing. I'll be with them, looking at it. Let us know immediately if anything happens, Hunter said before leaving abruptly. This was one of the things about Hunter. When he was playful, he would go all out to play with me, and whenever he was working, he was intensely focused, with nothing able to distract him. Jorvik lingered in the library while going through the code with me. I enjoyed his presence beside me while I worked, but he had to leave my side to attend to packing matters. This left me alone with my computers again. Not that I minded being alone with my computers. I enjoyed being with my computers and cooking up new stuff, but with how Erica had been keeping me on my toes, things were making me more anxious. While Hunter reviewed the logs with the cyber team, I used my time to make malware software for my system in case Erica tried to pull something like this again. The malware would instantly freeze the system when Erica tried to link my remaining servers with the stolen ones. Additionally, the malware would instantly change all the passwords and keys, locking her out permanently, so she would no longer be able to tamper with them. I wanted to be prepared for her this time, and there was no way I was going to let her slip. However, a couple more days passed, and she didn't do anything. I tried to reach out to the servers, but I got nothing in return. This made me anxious. I wondered if she did something to my servers. If she physically destroyed them, then I'd be heartbroken, but it'd fuel my bloodthirst for Erica. I mentally plotted all the things I was going to do to her once she was caught. I'd make her beg for her life. We had a lot of old unfinished business together that I'd gladly take care of. After Hunter had reviewed the code with the cyber team, they had managed to determine a location, but it wasn't exact. It was the name of a city up north, almost bordering Valen's territory. A town named Curses. I had never had a reason to go there, and it was always cold, which made me even less likely to go. However, there was a possibility that Erica could be there, which made me want to go there as soon as possible. If I could teleport there, I'd already be in Curses, combing through the city, looking for her. The fact that she was close to Valen's snow court and the Arctic made me even more nervous. I couldn't help but wonder what she could be doing there with my servers. The chances of her living there were slim, since I hadn't heard much about her after she ran away from the orphanage. Everyone there had thought her to be dead. But whether she lived in Curses or not, I didn't have a good feeling about her hosting my servers there. She was planning more than just messing around under my name. No. Erica was a girl who loved to be grand. She was an ambitious person, and so was I, but she had this madness to her that always made me uneasy. The orphan nurses said that it was because our mother had dropped Erica when she was a baby. I always believed it was something she was born with. It must have something to do with her biological father. Our mother was crazy enough, but she wasn't so far gone. We need to go there as soon as possible, I told the brothers as soon as we learned about Curses. I have my doubts about curses, Jorvik said. This could very well be something to throw us off. But what if she's already there? I asked, feeling anxious. I wasn't like this before, but things had changed with me after the explosion. It was as if I could afford to express myself even more, rather than suppress everything and put on a cold front. The brothers allowed me to be vulnerable because they always made me feel like they had my back and that I was always protected. We can send some of our men to look for her, Hunter suggested, but I shook my head. Erica might get alerted and move if we do that, I countered, and Jorvik nodded pensively. His eyes were unfocused as he thought deeply. We need to take a chance and go there. We need to be quick. She can't know that we are there looking for her, I said. But what if she isn't there? Hunter asked. I could tell that he was trying to plan out other options. If she's not there, we wouldn't have any other option but to look somewhere else. But I doubt that. If you found curses in one of the logs of the service connection, then I don't think that's something to throw us off. You can't mess with the logs. They are always accurate, I explained. Jorvik nodded, but Hunter still seemed reluctant about going to curses. We can't just go there and start looking for her randomly. Curses is a big city. We need some source, Hunter said, and I nodded. Is she a rogue wolf? Jorvik asked. No, that's the problem. She's human, I sighed deeply. She has never been part of any pack, and I scoured the internet and didn't find anything about her anywhere else either, I said. Well then, we'll figure out something on our way there, but I think we must go there before it's too late, Jorvik said, and Hunter nodded. So it was. We started preparing for another trip, but it'd be far north, the northernmost palace I'd ever be in, and hopefully, I'd find Erica there. Chapter 2. Hunter. I was apprehensive about going to Cursa's for numerous reasons. Primarily because it was close to Valen's snow court. I was sure our presence there would attract unwanted attention from him. He already knew we were pursuing Thorn with the identical keenness. Still, I didn't want him to know about any of the current developments because he'd end up getting too invested in our business, and that was the last thing I wanted to happen. If he got too involved, he might discover the truth about Morgan, ultimately putting Serafina in danger. I couldn't let that happen. I'm more worried about Valen than the possibility of Erica not being in Cursa's, I told Jorvik gingerly. I could tell he had the same thoughts, but was eager to go to Cursa's and find Erica. Once he knows we're in Cursa's, he's going to come down to see us, I added. I know, Jorvik grunted, his face pensive, but we cannot avoid going to Cursa's. The only way we'll find out if Erica is there or not is by going there. Yeah, that's another problem. We don't know where to look, I said, rubbing my chin. I'm thinking of calling the city councilor and asking for all the details of the residence, Jorvik said. I could tell that he was still profoundly thinking about it. He was the one who excelled in matters like this, navigating the bureaucracy. My patience was too thin to deal with those people. And you think he'll just give it to you? I asked. I'll wring it out of him if I have to, but I will get it somehow. Apart from that, I'm thinking of talking to Cedric of the North Loon Pack. His territory is close enough to Cursa's, and he might be able to help us out. That'll definitely get Valen's attention, I groaned. I didn't want to see him again after talking to Valen on the video call that day. Whenever I interacted with him, he managed to get on my nerves. That day, I disliked how he talked down to Myra. The only reason I didn't throw my fists that day was that it was a virtual call. I'd have taken him to task for disrespecting my mate if it were a physical meeting. I doubted if I'd be able to keep it civil if I saw him the next time, and he opened that cursed mouth of his. We cannot avoid Valen, Jorvik sighed, but we'll find a way to deal with him, one thing at a time. I'll be on the call with the Curses counselor soon. Start preparing for the journey. I intend to leave tonight. I grunted and left the office to call our private pilots and the other aviation crew to prepare for our flight tonight. I checked the patrolling duties, made some changes, and attended to other pack matters. After dealing with everything, I went to the library to see Myra. I had been craving for her so much, but the backbreaking work was keeping me from her. Some days, I dreamt of just disappearing with her in the woods with my brother and staying in a cabin without a care in the world, enjoying my mate to the full extent, but alas, everything was so chaotic. It didn't help that we hadn't completed our mating bond yet. My brother and I were desperate to mark Serafina and complete the bond ultimately, but her wolf was still taking time to go into heat. It was essential for her wolf to go into heat so that we could mark her, or else her wolf and body might reject the marks. More patience was required in this situation, but that was exactly what I lacked the most. I opened the library door and stepped inside to find Myra's computer crammed there. She had them all laid out on the floor where she was currently sitting. She was too consumed in her work to have noticed my presence. I snuck behind her silently and bent behind her. She let out a yelp as soon as she saw my presence, making me chuckle. She frowned at me while I wrapped my arms around her and pulled her against me before filling my lungs with her intoxicating scent. My wolf howled for her, wanting to be closer to her. "My busy cat is so focused," I muttered, slipping my hand under her blouse and cupping her shoulder gently before giving it a soft squeeze. She squirmed under me but didn't fight my touch. "And you haven't been busy?" she shot back. I sighed deeply. I couldn't pay attention to her properly because I had been so busy with work. It was one of my negative tendencies to get sucked into work completely once I put my mind to anything. Currently, my main goal is to find Erica and stop her from whatever colossal mess she has planned. Seeing Serafina grow increasingly anxious day by day exacerbated this tendency. But it only seemed to backfire because I hadn't been able to pay proper attention to my busy cat. "I'm sorry for that, my busy cat. I know I haven't been able to give you what you want," I whispered in her ear while slipping my other hand into her pants. She looked up at me, and the warmth of her smile made my heart soften. We spoke softly for a while, and I felt at peace just being close to her. No matter the chaos around us, this moment felt like the calm before the storm. Chapter 3. Jorvik. The evening air was cool as I finally managed to wrap up the pressing work with the pack. It had been a hectic few days, but the job was done. With that off my shoulders, I could focus on the next step in our mission. I had made contact with the city councilor of Curses, and to my surprise, he had agreed to assist us in locating Erica. The ease with which I convinced him was almost unsettling. I had also made a few calls to a neighboring pack, Alpha, to ensure that we had all the resources we needed. The pieces were falling into place, and now we were ready to move. When I got home, Hunter and Serafina were already packed and waiting. It was clear that Hunter had been trying to help Myra with her anxiety, but she still seemed uneasy, fidgeting with the edges of her sleeve as she sat silently. Myra had been under a great deal of stress recently. I could feel it radiating off her. For the past few days, she had withdrawn into the library, burying herself in books, but I knew it was a coping mechanism for her unease. I hated seeing her like this. Every time I tried to comfort her, something within the pack would require my attention, pulling me away. But I was determined to make it right, to make sure she knew that I was there for her. Her restlessness was starting to affect me as well. I couldn't stand seeing her so on edge. I needed to find a way to break through her barrier and reconnect with her. As we prepared to leave for the airport, I told myself that once we were away from the pack for a while, things would be different. We would be able to focus on each other without the constant distractions. The drive to the airport was a quiet one. There was so much on my mind: our mission, the information I had gathered from the counselor, and the uncertainty of what awaited us in Curses. I filled Hunter and Serafina in on the details of what we had learned. We had a plan in place, but we needed to stay sharp and flexible, as we knew plans rarely go as planned. "We're going to need to be careful once we get to Curses," I said, glancing over at them. "Valen will likely try to involve himself, and we can't let him. He's always been too unpredictable." Serafina nodded. "We need to keep our heads on straight. We have a mission, and that's our focus." Hunter, who had been typing away on his phone, looked up. "I'll have the cyber team keep an eye on any developments. We can't afford to miss anything." I appreciated Hunter's calm demeanor. He had a way of handling stress that I admired. But even with everything going on, there was something else on my mind: the way Myra seemed to pull away every time I tried to get close. It wasn't just the tension with the pack or the mission. I knew there was more to it. I needed to figure out how to make her feel safe again and let her know I was there for her no matter what. We boarded the plane and settled into our seats. The plane took off, and as we climbed into the sky, the weight of our mission seemed to lift just a little. Myra sat beside me, looking out the window, lost in thought. Serafina was across from me, flipping through a book, and Hunter was still on his phone, multitasking as usual. I placed my hand on Myra's thigh, the contact small but deliberate. It wasn't just the mission I was concerned with anymore. I wanted to make things right between us, to ease her anxiety, to bring her back to a place where she felt secure. I could sense the tension in her, but she didn't pull away. Her body responded to the touch, but her eyes stayed on the window, as though she was trying to escape into her thoughts. "Hey," I whispered, leaning in slightly. "I know things have been tough, but we'll get through this. We're in this together, Myra. You don't have to carry all of this alone." Myra's eyes flicked to me, and for a moment, I saw the vulnerability there. It wasn't something she liked to show, but I could read it in the way her shoulders relaxed just a fraction, in the way her breath evened out. I knew she was still struggling, but I wanted her to know I was there for her, that she didn't have to shoulder the burden of everything on her own. Hunter glanced up at us, then looked back down at his phone with a knowing expression. He didn't say anything, but I knew he understood. There were moments when it was easy to forget that we were all in this together, but it was in these small exchanges, these quiet gestures, that the bond between us felt strongest. The flight was mostly uneventful, with the occasional small talk and updates about the mission. As the plane ascended into the sky, I could feel a sense of calm settling over me. The air seemed more straightforward, the weight of responsibility lighter. But that didn't mean we could let our guard down. Curses was still ahead, and with Valen's unpredictable nature, I wasn't going to take anything for granted. As the plane began its descent, I looked over at Myra again. Her gaze had shifted from the window to the seat in front of her, her body still tense, but she was quieter now. Maybe it was the change of scenery, the idea of being away from the pack, but she seemed calmer. We were getting closer to Curses, and I knew that once we landed, we would have our hands full with the mission. But for the first time in days, I felt like maybe Myra and I would find a way to reconnect. Chapter 4. Myra. The following morning, I woke up to the warmth of Jorvik's arm draped over my waist. We were in the small, cozy bedroom at the back of their private jet. The space was cramped, but it didn't matter much to me. I sighed contentedly, basking in his warmth and the scent of him that lingered in the air around us. It wasn't every day I woke up and found Jorvik beside me. Most mornings I would discover Hunter there, but today I was glad it was Jorvik. I couldn't deny that waking up next to both of my mates together was always the best feeling, but today, it felt like a special moment just with Jorvik. I felt sore from the previous night's events, but something about it was soothing. The soreness was a reminder that my wolf and I were content, that we had found a way to release the tension I had been carrying. It had helped ease all the built-up anxiety that had been weighing me down for days. As I lay there, I absent-mindedly drew small circles on Jorvik's arm, listening to the steady rhythm of his breathing. His chest rose and fell with each breath, a comforting sound. He stirred slightly, pulling me closer in his sleep, and then pressed a soft kiss on my cheek. It was a simple gesture, but it made my heart flutter. I smiled, my heart warming at the affection he showed even while still half asleep. I turned my head and placed a small kiss on his cheek in return, my fingers gently stroking his arm. "Are you awake, Jorvik?" I whispered, careful not to disturb the peaceful moment too much. He hummed in response, and the sound of his voice, husky and low from sleep, sent a flutter through my stomach. "Yes, baby girl," he said after a beat, his voice as comforting as ever. "Did you sleep well?" I sighed contentedly. "Yes," I answered, my voice soft. "How about you?" "I slept very well," he replied, nuzzling his nose gently against my neck. The warmth of his breath against my skin filled my chest with a fuzzy, comforting feeling I didn't want to let go of. His hand moved between my legs, and I could feel his fingers tracing the skin there. "Does it ache, baby girl?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. I felt a brief twinge of discomfort, but I didn't mind. "Just a bit," I admitted. Without hesitation, Jorvik immediately sat up, a worried expression crossing his face. "No, don't get up," I protested softly, but he ignored me, moving to sit between my legs. He carefully spread them apart, his gaze focused as he checked me over, a serious look on his face. I watched him closely, feeling vulnerable but strangely comforted by his attentiveness. He ran his fingers gently over the marks, frowning when he noticed the soreness. "You're very sore," he muttered, his brow furrowing. "You should have stopped me last night when it became too much." I enjoyed it, I shrugged, trying to ease his worry, but he was still concerned. "You shouldn't push yourself," he said softly, though I could see his protective instincts kicking in. He reached for a wet towel and began to clean me gently, his movements slow and tender. I let out a sigh of relief as the cool cloth soothed the area, and he followed that with a soothing oil. The sensation of it was both cool at first and numbing as it absorbed into my skin, the pain slowly melting away. The relief was instant, and I couldn't help but smile. Seeing the concern on Jorvik's face eased my feelings a little. While he continued to attend to me, Hunter stepped into the bedroom. He paused, taking in the situation, and glanced at Jorvik. But Jorvik shook his head, assuring Hunter that everything was fine. "We need to be more careful next time," Jorvik said, his tone still serious. Hunter nodded, his expression softening. "Does that feel better, Myra?" he asked, his voice now warm and understanding. "Yes," I answered, still feeling a bit sore but much better than before. "But not as good as your hugs," I teased with a grin, trying to lighten the mood. Jorvik continued to look worried, and even Hunter seemed a little uneasy. "Tell us when it hurts next time," Hunter said, pressing a quick kiss to my lips. I pouted, not liking their overprotectiveness, but I knew they meant well. "It didn't hurt," I protested softly, but they still didn't seem convinced. It was a constant struggle for me to remind them that I wasn't as fragile as they thought. I was a werewolf too, and while I wasn't as strong as they were, I wasn't completely helpless either. Before I could continue the conversation, the intercom beeped, signaling that the pilot was preparing for landing. We all got moving quickly. I hurried into the tiny shower, knowing I didn't have much time. I would have liked to share it with Jorvik, but there was no room for both of us, so I took a quick shower by myself. When I stepped out, Hunter had already packed up our things and was waiting for me outside the bedroom. We went to grab a quick breakfast, and not long after, Jorvik joined us. The rest of the landing and the drive to the hotel were a blur of activity. Once we arrived, Hunter and Jorvik jumped straight into making calls, while I checked in with the cyber team to get updates on any movements from Erica. I also kept an eye on my systems through a laptop that I had remotely connected to my network. I had to stay alert in case Erica decided to make another move. At the hotel, the city councilor of Curses was already waiting for us, having gathered the information that Jorvik had requested. We wasted no time and got straight to work. We combed through the data, searching for any new residents, names connected to Erica, or potential aliases she might be using. But after hours of searching, we found nothing substantial. Frustration started to settle in. We expanded our search to other databases, hoping for a breakthrough, but we still found nothing. I refused to give up, though. I was determined to find Erica, no matter how long it took or how difficult the search became. As the day wore on, we still had no leads. The city councilor had done his best, but there was only so much he could do. I checked my systems, but there was still no sign of Erica. She hadn't tampered with any PAC systems lately, which made me feel uneasy. The silence could mean that she was planning something big. Determined, I brainstormed new ways to generate leads, but after an entire day with no results, my patience was starting to wear thin. "If we keep going like this, we might never find anything," I groaned, staring at the screens. Jorvik sat beside me, his hand on my shoulder in silent support. Hunter had gone off to take care of some other business, but I wasn't expecting him to return so quickly. When Hunter walked back into the room, his expression was tense. "Someone's here to meet us," he said, his voice tight. His shoulders were stiff, and there was an unmistakable scowl on his face. I glanced at Jorvik, who muttered a curse under his breath. "Valen," he growled, the tension in the room growing. Chapter 5. Hunter. What I had feared the most ended up happening. Valen came to see us as soon as he learned we were in Curses. I could feel the tension rise the moment I told Serafina and Jorvik about his arrival. Their faces turned sour, but it was Serafina who seemed to take it hardest. She looked more anxious than usual, and I couldn't help but feel a bit guilty for telling her. She was already under so much stress because of her sister, and now Valen's appearance only added to the pressure. I could tell he was here for more than just a casual visit. Valen had an uncanny way of making people nervous, and having him here, so close to Myra, made me want to keep my guard up. Jorvik could see what was going on, and without another word, he stood up, ready to face whatever Valen had in store for us. "I'll deal with him," Jorvik said, his tone firm, leaving Myra's side. "Is it going to be all right?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. "You don't have to worry about him, baby girl," Jorvik assured her, but I could tell from the look in his eyes that even he was uncertain. Valen was dangerous, and no matter how prepared we were, we could never predict what he would do next. Valen wasn't just unpredictable. He was one of the most dangerous individuals I had ever met. I had witnessed him tear an alpha's throat out over a simple disagreement. The incident had earned him the nickname Mad Alpha, but even that didn't do him justice. He was a force of nature, and having him in the same building as Myra made me uneasy. I wanted to protect her from whatever chaos Valen might bring. "I'll go with you," I volunteered, my voice steady, though inside I was already preparing for anything. Jorvik nodded without hesitation. "Let's go. If you need anything, just text us," Jorvik said, his voice cool but filled with underlying concern. "But don't show up and don't call us. We don't want Valen to meet you. He's dangerous." "A misogynist psycho," Serafina added with a snort, her expression hardening. "Is it the misogynist trait that makes him the worst?" I couldn't help but ask, trying to break the tension, though I knew the answer. Serafina shrugged. "Does that mean you'd have been fine if you were just a psycho?" I couldn't resist asking. "Definitely," Serafina replied bluntly. "I've dealt with psychos before, but a misogynist? That's a whole different level. I can't stand men like that. Let's go now." "I don't want him coming looking for us here," Jorvik urged, his voice turning serious. "I'll see you soon, Myra," I said, planting a soft kiss on her lips. "Stay in the suite. Don't open the door for anyone but us." "I'm not a child," she shot back, rolling her eyes. "Well, there's a misogynist psycho out there. Can't have him catching you off guard," I teased, but I couldn't help the nervous energy that hummed in my chest. Jorvik chuckled while Serafina gave me a pointed glare. "We'll be right back, baby girl," Jorvik reassured Myra, kissing her once more before the two of us finally left the suite. The elevator ride down was filled with silence. I couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to get complicated. Valen was never just a simple nuisance. I had learned that the hard way. Valen was sitting in the hotel lounge when we arrived, looking casual as ever, but I knew better than to trust his unassuming facade. The man was always a few steps ahead, even when he didn't seem to be. He greeted us with a cocky smile, raising an eyebrow as he looked between us. His eyes immediately flicked around the room, likely searching for someone. "Myra." I could feel the anger rising in my chest. "You didn't bring your mate?" Valen asked, his voice laced with mock curiosity. Jorvik took a seat across from him while I positioned myself between them, my hand resting on the gun tucked into my jacket pocket. "Why are you here, Valen?" Jorvik asked, his voice grim and filled with barely contained tension. "I wanted to ask you the same thing," Valen replied smoothly. "You two never come this far. What's going on? Everything all right?" His voice had a dangerous edge, as if he were probing for weakness. "Everything is fine," Jorvik responded flatly, but Valen's smile didn't fade. It only deepened, like he knew more than he was letting on. "Oh, really?" Valen smirked. "Then, what's this? A vacation? A honeymoon?" He leaned forward slightly, his eyes flicking over us with curiosity. "If that's the case, you should have called me up. I know some romantic spots in my territory that your mate would have loved to see," he added casually. "Thanks for the offer, but we're good here," I said dismissively, not wanting to entertain his games. Valen shot me a dark look, but I refused to back down. His demeanor remained relaxed, but I knew that look, the one that meant he was gearing up for something bigger. Valen finally shifted gears, leaning back in his chair with a slight chuckle. "Did you find anything about Morgan?" he asked, his tone changing in an instant. "No," Jorvik and I answered at the same time. So it's a yes, then," Valen said with a grin. "You two are so easy to read." "We didn't find anything on Morgan," Jorvik clarified, his voice still even. "We're still looking." Valen's eyes glinted with something unsettling, but he didn't press the issue. Instead, he leaned back further in his chair and asked something unexpected. "So, you're here to find her, aren't you? She's in Cursa's, right?" Valen concluded, his gaze shifting between us. He was trying to push our buttons, testing our limits. We were used to this by now. "No," I replied quickly. "We're just visiting Myra's family. That's all." "She's from Cursa's?" Valen asked, leaning in with a mix of curiosity and something darker beneath the surface. "I should meet her." "She's resting," Jorvik said curtly, not wanting to give him any more room to push. "Some other time." Valen didn't seem ready to let go. He lingered, his eyes narrowing as he stared at Jorvik and me. For a moment, all three of us sat in tense silence, as if we were all waiting for the other to make a move. "How did you find your mate?" Valen asked after a long, drawn-out silence. The question came out of nowhere, and I could tell it caught Jorvik off guard. Jorvik and I exchanged a quick look, trying to gauge what he was getting at. "Why do you want to know?" I asked cautiously, trying to keep my tone casual despite the underlying tension. Valen shrugged nonchalantly, but there was a subtle shift in his posture. "I'm getting old," he said with a heavy sigh. "And I haven't found my mate yet." "How did you do it?" His words held a strange vulnerability, and I could sense the loneliness seeping through, despite his usual arrogant facade. For a brief moment, I found myself empathizing with him. It reminded me of how I had felt before we found Serafina, being surrounded by people who had mates, but still feeling like something was missing. Valen wasn't just an adversary. He was someone who, for all his power and influence, had yet to find the one thing that could complete him. "I don't know," Jorvik replied softly. "It just happened." Valen's face fell slightly, and I saw the vulnerability he had been hiding. "You're a few years younger than me," he said, his voice quieter now. "And you managed to find your mate. Do you think I can do the same?" Jorvik and I exchanged a look, both uncertain. The question hung in the air between us, unexpected and raw. "I don't know, Valen," Jorvik said, his voice laced with uncertainty. "I can't tell you what's possible for you. I don't know how it happened for me." Valen nodded slowly, as though accepting the answer. He had no more questions, no more jabs. For a moment, he just sat there, defeated. "Well, thanks for the advice," Valen said, standing up. "Maybe it's just too late for me, but I thought I'd ask." We exchanged a few more words about Morgan, but Valen's departure came quickly after that. He was gone, and we were left with the quiet aftermath of a conversation we hadn't expected. When we returned to our suite, Serafina was waiting for us, her eyes scanning us both with suspicion. "What took so long?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Valen's getting old without a mate," I explained with a shrug. "He wanted to know if he can find one at his age." Serafina looked surprised, then shook her head. "Seriously? That's why that psycho came here? To ask about mates?" "Unpredictable, as always," I said with a smirk. "Well, it's a good thing he doesn't have a mate. At least some women's life is spared," Serafina said bitterly. "But anyway, I've done something while you two were gone." "What is it?" Jorvik asked, sitting back down next to Myra. "I posted an encrypted message publicly," Serafina explained. "I know my stolen servers will pick it up. I asked her to meet me for the keys." "Have you gotten a response yet?" I asked. "Yes," Serafina replied grimly. Chapter 6. Myra. I had been anxiously waiting for the brothers to arrive ever since I got the response from Erica. I hadn't expected her to respond to me, especially so quickly. It was almost as if she had been anticipating my bait, and now she was ready to play the game on her terms. I had posted the bait in a public server, hoping my stolen servers would pick up on it and send her a notification. The response I received was far too fast for comfort. I had expected some delay, but Erica responded almost immediately instead. This rapid reaction only added to my unease. It was as though I had walked straight into her trap, not the other way around. Her message was clear. She wanted to meet. She was tired of hiding, tired of playing in the shadows. I had used the bait to draw her out, but now I couldn't help but wonder if she had been waiting for the right moment to come for me. She wanted the keys, and she was willing to take risks to get them. I was dealing with a woman who could easily manipulate the situation, and that terrified me. This was the first time we had communicated directly, and that meant one thing: Erica was ready to get involved herself. She wasn't just pulling strings from behind the scenes anymore. She was tired of staying in the shadows. Myra, the victim, was no longer her target. Now, she wanted to face me directly. It could mean a lot of things, good or bad. What was her endgame? Did she want a confrontation? Or had she finally lost control? At the same time, I had to admit, it was a relief. For weeks, she had been messing with my systems, sabotaging my efforts in ways I could barely keep track of. However, now it felt like an opportunity. It was a chance to confront her finally, get the answer I'd been waiting for, and, most importantly, get my servers back. But what was the price? How much would I have to sacrifice to get them back into my hands? As I sat there, staring at her message, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was the one walking into a trap. I had taken the bait, yes, but was I truly in control of the situation, or had Erica outsmarted me? "Show me her response," Jorvik demanded from behind me, his voice firm but filled with worry. I hesitated for a moment, unsure if I should share the full extent of the message, but I knew I had no choice. I opened the message for the brothers to read. The first part of it contained coordinates on a map of an abandoned harbor outside the city. The place was a ghost of its former self, long cut off from the main roads due to an avalanche years ago. The only way to reach it was by hiking through the mountainous wilderness. I frowned as I stared at the map. I had thought about going alone. It seemed the most logical course of action. This was my chance to get close to Erica, to catch her off guard. But the more I looked at the coordinates, the more I realized just how dangerous this could be. Should we send someone there to look for her? Hunter asked, his voice tense, his eyes never leaving the screen. I shook my head. "She told me to go alone, or else she'd destroy my servers," I said quietly, showing them the second part of her message, the one I had been holding back. I hadn't wanted to tell them, but now I knew they would find out one way or another. Jorvik's expression darkened immediately. "You're not going anywhere alone," he growled, his voice thick with worry. Hunter's face mirrored Jorvik's, the same protective instinct flashing in his eyes. I sighed deeply. "I have to do this," I said, my voice tinged with frustration. "I can't let her destroy my servers. This is my only chance to get them back." "You're not going alone," Jorvik repeated, his voice unwavering. I knew what this conversation was going to turn into. I could feel the argument forming, the one where they insisted on accompanying me, even though I knew that bringing them would make things more complicated. Erica had been clear: if I showed up with backup, she would ensure my servers were destroyed. I couldn't afford to fail, and bringing the brothers along could jeopardize everything. "Why are you both so determined to make this harder?" I asked, my frustration creeping into my tone. "I'm not a child. I can handle this." "You're not going alone, Myra," Jorvik repeated, his tone soft but firm. "This is not something we're going to argue about. You're too important to us." Hunter nodded, his eyes hard with resolve. "We're not going to let you put yourself in harm's way alone. We've been through too much already." I crossed my arms, clearly annoyed. I understood why they wanted to protect me, but I couldn't help but feel that they were underestimating the situation. This was my chance to put an end to everything. I had worked so hard to keep my servers safe, and now Erica was exposed. I couldn't let this opportunity slip away. "We'll come up with a plan," Jorvik said, placing his hand on my thigh as if to reassure me. "But you're not going alone." I shook my head. "She'll destroy everything if she knows you're with me." "I can't let that happen." Jorvik didn't back down. "That's a scare tactic. Erica wants the keys. She values those servers too much to destroy them. She won't risk it, not unless she has no other choice." I was about to argue, but Hunter cut in. "She's crazy, Myra. We can't be sure of what she'll do. But what we can be sure of is that we'll protect you." I turned to face them, a deep sigh escaping me. Fine, I muttered, giving in. I won't go alone, but what are we going to do? You don't even know how dangerous this is. We'll figure it out, Hunter said, his voice reassuring. We'll come up with a plan and prepare accordingly. But you need to trust us. We're not letting you do this alone. Jorvik wrapped his arm around my waist, pulling me close. His touch was comforting, and I couldn't deny the warmth that spread through me as he whispered, "We're just looking out for you, baby girl. You're too precious to us to let you face this alone." Despite my initial reluctance, I felt myself melting into his embrace. His words, Hunter's touch on my neck, all worked to calm my nerves. The brothers were right to be worried, and I was being stubborn by resisting. They had seen the worst of what could happen. They had lived through the explosion, through my injuries, and they would never let me go through something like that again. I leaned into Jorvik, feeling the weight of the moment settle over me. "All right," I said quietly. "I won't go there alone, but I'm trusting you to help me figure out what to do next." Hunter grinned, his eyes softening. "That's all we need to hear, Myra. We'll take care of this together." Jorvik kissed the top of my head, his voice low and gentle. "We've got this, baby girl. Don't worry. You're not alone in this anymore." I nodded, feeling the weight of my decision lift slightly. The brothers were determined, and despite my frustrations, I knew they were doing this out of love and concern for me. As much as I wanted to do this on my own, I couldn't fight them forever. "We're going to make a plan, and we'll get through this," Jorvik said, his words filling me with the strength I needed. I looked down at Erica's message once more, the coordinates burning into my mind. Tomorrow afternoon would be the day. We would face Erica, and hopefully, this would be the end of it all. Chapter 7. Myra. The following day, we set out for the abandoned port at noon. The sky was a dull gray, with snow gently falling from the clouds above. The promise of a storm hung in the air, visible on the horizon like an approaching shadow. The snowflakes settled lightly on my coat and hair, each one a reminder that the weather would only grow harsher as the day wore on. The brothers had been reluctant to let me go today. They'd wanted to postpone the trip until tomorrow when the weather was expected to improve, but I couldn't afford to wait. The weather in Curses was unpredictable, and I wasn't about to rely on it. There was a storm brewing, yes, but I couldn't waste another day. I had already convinced Jorvik and Hunter after much arguing last night, and, despite their concerns, they reluctantly agreed to move forward. We drove as far as we could, the small convoy of SUVs struggling through the snow-clad road, and soon we reached the last edge of the snow-blocked path. The abandoned port was just beyond it, but the snow was falling harder now, covering the road completely. I could sense that the brothers were uneasy. They kept looking at the road ahead and back at me, but before they could voice their concerns or suggest heading back, I hopped out of the SUV, feeling the crisp, cold air hit my skin. It was time to go. I surveyed my surroundings. Visibility was already low, with the heavy snow making it hard to see much more than a few yards in front of me. The road, now completely swallowed by snow, stretched out endlessly in all directions. Nothing but white covered the landscape. "I'll have to walk northwest for a mile or two, I guess," I said, glancing at the coordinates on my phone while Hunter stood next to me, eyes scanning the environment as we both looked ahead. Hunter didn't take his eyes off the horizon. He corrected me, his voice low but filled with resolve. I clenched my teeth, acknowledging the silent command. "The signal here's pretty bad. If anything goes wrong, communicating with the reinforcement team will be a pain." I nodded. I knew the risks, but I couldn't help feeling impatient. "We'll manage somehow," I said optimistically, though my words felt hollow even to myself. My restlessness was growing. Erica's message had come through so quickly yesterday, and she hadn't responded to my encrypted announcement last night. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, but I had to push forward. I had a bad feeling about this whole thing. I woke up with a sense of unease that wouldn't go away. I wasn't sure if it was the awkward sleep between the brothers, sandwiched between them in the SUV, or if there was something more to it. I tried to tap into my wolf's instincts, but she was eerily quiet today. It unsettled me further. Why was she so silent? Had she sensed something I hadn't? The snow was heavier now, falling in thick flurries that stung my face. The cold wasn't the problem, though. We were all bundled up in snow gear, but the gnawing feeling of dread in my chest was much worse than a cold. This was the first time I would meet Erica face to face in years. I didn't have a good feeling about it. I couldn't afford to let her get away again. I had to get my servers back before she could destroy them. We need to start soon, I pointed out as I looked up at the sky, noticing the snow was falling even harder. Hunter grunted in agreement. Just then, Jorvik came over, ready to begin the hike. "You'll stay close to us, Myra," Jorvik said, his voice laced with authority as he walked toward me. He gave me a stern look. "And if you're planning to do anything that's not in the plan, you'll inform us first." I bit back a groan but nodded. There was no point in arguing. "Yes," Hunter added, joining the conversation. "You won't put yourself at unnecessary risk. When things go wrong, you call for us." "All right," I muttered, slightly annoyed at the constant reminders, but deep down, I knew they meant well. Despite my irritation, I felt a small sense of gratitude for their concern. It was just their doting nature that made me feel like I was constantly under a microscope. "We want your word, Myra," Hunter said, his voice firm but caring. "I will not put myself in danger and will call for help when things go wrong," I said sincerely. The words felt like a promise, and I could see the relief in their eyes. The two brothers nodded, satisfied with my answer. Hunter kissed me lightly on the lips before stepping back, but Jorvik wasn't done. He cupped my face gently and kissed me deeply, his lips searing against mine. By the time we pulled apart, I was breathless. My heart was pounding faster now, but I needed that kiss to calm my nerves. I could feel the storm brewing inside me, just as surely as the one on the horizon. "We've got your back, baby girl," Jorvik whispered against my lips. I nodded, feeling a surge of warmth in my chest, though it did little to calm the unease gnawing at me. The three of us began our hike through the snow, the weight of the situation slowly pressing on me with each step. At first, the snow was relentless, piling up quickly and making every step harder to take. The brothers were already considering turning back, but fortunately, the snow lightened slightly, and we could continue moving forward. The world around us seemed to disappear into the endless stretch of white. Snow-covered trees and ruined buildings were barely visible as we trudged through the harsh landscape. The cold was biting and the snow was thick, but I couldn't stop now. I had to find Erica, to face her and put an end to this. After what felt like hours of walking, the ruins of the old port finally appeared ahead. The warehouses, long abandoned and covered in snow, appeared as remnants of a forgotten era. The roofs had caved in under the weight of the snow, and the walls were cracked, revealing the decay that had settled over this place. A few frozen containers lay scattered around, covered in a thin layer of frost. The desolate landscape felt eerie, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. We made our way through the remains of the port, keeping close as we followed the coordinates. Jorvik and Hunter stayed behind, taking cover while I continued toward the exact location. The clearing ahead appeared to have been used for parking containers that were once used for loading and unloading goods. The giant cranes, now frozen and useless, loomed above me, their skeletal arms stretching toward the sky. I stood in the clearing, surveying my surroundings. I had expected Erica to be here, but there was no sign of her. My servers could be hidden in any of the containers around me. They were massive, heavy, and bulky, but I couldn't understand how she had managed to carry them here. Was she hiding them in the containers? Or had she left them somewhere else? I was lost in thought when I heard the unmistakable crunch of snow behind me. I spun around instinctively, my hand reaching for the gun I had tucked in my pocket. There she was, Erica. She was walking toward me, her face partially obscured by a scarf, but I could still see her eyes, those electric blue eyes I had inherited from our mother. The sight of her sent a shiver down my spine, but I didn't move. I stood my ground, overseeing her as she approached. As she approached, Erica slowly undid her scarf, revealing her face entirely. She met my gaze and stared at me for what felt like an eternity. Then, finally, she spoke. "I hate it that we look alike so much," she said, her voice bitter and filled with resentment. The words stung more than I expected. After all these years, after everything that had happened, Erica was standing here, ready to face me. The tension between us was thick, and I could feel the weight of it pressing on me. "You've got a lot of nerve showing up," I said, my voice cold and steady, despite the emotions swirling inside me. "What do you want, Erica?" She smirked, and I could see the malice in her eyes. "I want what's mine," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "And I'm here to take it back." Chapter 8. Myra. "You're supposed to say, 'I'm glad to see you,' or something along those lines when you meet someone," I said, my voice cool as I faced Erica. She shrugged, a smirk playing at the corners of her lips. "I'm not glad to see you," she replied, her tone detached. "But I'm glad you're here, Myra." "Are you glad to see me?" she asked, flashing me one of her cryptic, unsettling smiles that always made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. "I'm as glad as you are to see me," I replied, matching her nonchalance, though inside I was anything but calm. Her smile only widened, stretching into something almost predatory. For a moment, we just stared at each other, the tension hanging thick between us. I couldn't help but observe how much she had changed over the years. Taller, slimmer. Her face and eyes, identical to mine, held more coldness than I remembered. Her sharp features were now softened by time, but it wasn't just the appearance. There was something darker in her presence, something almost haunting. I felt my gaze flicker down to the ground before meeting her eyes again. Erica hadn't lost the ability to unsettle me. She never had. "I could have never imagined that we'd meet again," she spoke, the words layered with something unfamiliar, something that sounded almost like nostalgia, though it was hard to tell with her. I'd spent so long chasing her shadows that the idea of finally standing before her felt surreal. "I thought you died," I said bluntly, unable to keep the bitterness from creeping into my voice. I had believed for years that I was done with her, that I was free from the threat she posed. But here she was, alive and well, standing right in front of me. She shrugged again, indifferent. "Not yet," she said. Then her eyes darkened. "What do you do now apart from theft and impersonation?" I asked, genuinely curious despite myself. Her laugh was wild, almost unhinged, and it made my stomach tighten. "I've committed myself to piracy," she said proudly, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. I narrowed my eyes at her. "Piracy?" I repeated, echoing her words in disbelief. That wasn't the answer I had expected, but somehow it made sense. Erica had always been about breaking boundaries, and lawlessness was her specialty. Still, piracy was an unexpected direction. "Yes," she said, her voice almost smug now. "When I ran from the orphanage, a sailor offered me a job on his ship. Turned out, he was a pirate, and I quickly learned the ropes. Now I've got my ship and crew." I blinked at her, taken aback. "Wow, congratulations," I said flatly, though the surprise in my voice was genuine. She flashed me a proud smile, and for a moment, I could almost see the Erica I once knew, the one who was always looking for the next thing, the next adventure. "Thank you," she said, the smile almost real, but there was something darker behind it, as always. "But how does a pirate go from robbing ships to stealing servers?" I asked, my tone shifting, growing sharper with my growing frustration. "And how the hell did you even know that I'm Morgan? How did you find my servers? Why didn't you take everything while you were at it?" I couldn't hold back anymore. I needed answers, and I needed them now. Her eyes sparkled with excitement as I asked my questions, and I knew she was enjoying this moment. "Those fascinating questions," she said with that unsettling smile again, her gaze lingering on me like a predator circling its prey. "You see, the sea is an interesting place," she said, her voice almost wistful. "It has no boundaries, no laws, absolutely nothing. A perfect place for those who are running away from something." "Like you?" I asked, my voice flat. I could sense her annoyance as her smile faltered and her eyes hardened. "Apart from piracy, I sometimes like to host a guest or two on my ship. Guests who are on the run from authority or enemies on land," she said, her tone light, but there was something in it that made my skin crawl. "I once hosted a guest named Salicus Grante," she added casually, as though it were the most normal thing to say. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. I sucked in a breath, my mind racing. Salicus Grante. Of all the people, him. I had never thought I'd hear his name again, but here it was, floating between us. He was the one who knew my entire truth, the truth I had worked so hard to bury. He and I had crossed paths before, back when I worked with him. Things had turned sour between us, and I'd hired hitmen to silence him. He had always managed to slip through my grasp, escaping every trap I'd set for him. I thought I had finally ended it when I managed to have him killed a couple of years ago. Now, I was left to wonder if he had been hiding out all along with Erica. I clenched my fists at my sides, trying to control the surge of anger building inside me. Well, Salicus taught me a thing or two while he was at sea with me. Dodging your hitmen, she said, almost lazily. It's such a shame he was killed eventually. We were such good friends. He had a good dick too, and was pretty generous with it, she added with a wild grin, clearly enjoying the shock on my face. I felt my stomach twist in disgust, but I wasn't going to let her see how much her words affected me. Salicus had to die, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil swirling inside me. I wanted to scream at her, to lash out, but I kept my composure. I hope you didn't fuck him raw. He had some disease in his dick, I added, just to get under her skin. Her unsettling smile faltered, and for the first time, I saw a flash of real emotion cross her face, anger, maybe even shame, before she wiped it away with a sharp glare. You sound like you have enough experience with diseased dick, Erica shot back, her voice venomous. You're fucking those King brothers, aren't you? She asked with a smirk. My stomach dropped at her words, and I felt an icy chill run through me. How did she know about them? My mates? My relationship with them? I tried to appear nonchalant, but inside, my mind raced. How the hell had Erica gotten this information? I wanted to keep her far away from Jorvik and Hunter, but it seemed like she had already dug into my life far deeper than I had anticipated. It's a shame you didn't bring them to meet their sister-in-law, Erica purred, her eyes gleaming with malicious delight. Or did you bring them with you? Are they hiding somewhere here? She taunted. I pressed my lips into a thin line, feeling a surge of protectiveness for the brothers. The last thing I wanted was for Erica to get anywhere near them. Let's get down to business quickly, I said, trying to steer the conversation back to the matter at hand. The mention of the brothers was unsettling me more than I wanted to admit. Where are my servers, Erica? I need to see them first, I demanded, keeping my voice firm. Erica didn't immediately answer. Instead, she leaned in closer, her eyes narrowing with calculation. Did you bring the keys with you? She asked, her tone suddenly businesslike. Yes, I hissed, my patience wearing thin. All right then, follow me, she said, turning and walking toward the other end of the clearing. She moved with ease, as though she had already memorized the route. I glanced behind me, toward where I knew Jorvik and Hunter were hiding. The weight of my gun in my pocket was a constant reminder that things could go sideways in an instant. I hesitated for a moment, but then followed her, trusting that the brothers would be ready if anything went wrong. Erica led me to a cluster of containers at the far end of the port. The snow continued to fall in thick layers, the world around us shrouded in a ghostly silence. This was it. I had no choice but to follow her, hoping that the servers were still there and that nothing else went wrong. Chapter 9. Myra. I carefully traced Erica's steps, my boots crunching in the fresh snow with each cautious move. We were in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by a maze of containers in eerie silence. Despite the harsh wind howling from the direction of the frozen sea, Erica seemed unaffected. Her thin layers of clothing didn't appear to bother her as much as they did me, even though I was bundled up in a thick fox fur jacket and multiple sweaters. Still, the cold pierced through every layer I had, making it difficult to focus on anything other than the discomfort. Glancing over my shoulder, I tried to make out any sign of my team following me. The snow fell in thick, heavy layers, and the visibility was poor. I couldn't tell if they were still with me, but I could feel the tracks I was leaving behind my steps marked in the snow. For all I knew, they were keeping a close watch, ready to intervene if needed. Erica, on the other hand, moved like a shadow, her figure barely visible against the stark whiteness of the snow. I kept my distance, but my hand remained on my gun, just in case she had something else planned. Her silence was as unsettling as her confident, unhurried pace. It was as though she had no intention of letting me catch up. I needed to stay alert. "How did you even get here?" I asked the question that had been bugging me for what seemed like hours. "We didn't see any vehicles on the way here." "How did you manage to get those heavy servers all the way out here without leaving a trace?" Erica didn't break her stride as she answered, "You'll see soon enough." Her words only deepened the mystery. I could feel frustration building up inside me. It didn't make sense. We had been walking for hours, yet there was no sign of anything that could have transported the equipment. No tire tracks, no engine noises, just the quiet, deafening hum of the snowstorm. "You better be leading me to my servers," I told her, trying to keep my voice steady, but my frustration leaked through. "I've got them," she replied. Her tone was almost dismissive, but I could hear the edge in her voice. "I've been taking good care of them. I know exactly how valuable they are to you." "Why?" The words slipped from my lips before I could stop myself. "Why all this, Erica? We went our separate ways. You could have just stayed out of my life. So, why did you steal my servers and impersonate me? What do you want from me?" She paused for a moment, her head tilted slightly as she considered my words. "Why do you think," she said, her voice softening a little. "Do you really think I'm doing this just for fun? Are you upset about what happened with Salicus?" I asked, trying to make sense of it all. "Is that it? Are you still angry with me?" She laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Salicus." Her voice dropped, and there was a bitter edge to it. "He was just a client. A casual encounter. He paid well for the cruise and for my services. He meant nothing." I nodded, trying to make sense of her words. If Salicus didn't matter, then what did? What was her motive? The cold wind whipped through my hair, and I pulled my jacket tighter around me, fighting off the chill creeping up my spine. "I have my reasons," Erica continued, her eyes gleaming with something darker than I was used to seeing. Her words held a promise of something I couldn't quite place. "Okay, but what are those reasons?" I pressed again. We had made several turns around the containers, and I found myself losing track of where we were. It didn't matter, though. I was leaving a trail in the snow, and if my team were behind me, they'd follow it. "To start with, it was boredom," Erica finally said, without turning to look at me. "Boredom?" I repeated, my voice laced with disbelief. "Are you serious? Boredom led you to steal from me and impersonate me." She glanced over her shoulder, a smirk tugging at her lips. "You'd be surprised at what boredom can do to a person. You should try it sometime." I felt the frustration boiling up inside of me, but I managed to keep my voice level. "Really? Boredom? You're willing to risk everything for a little thrill." She stopped walking abruptly and turned to face me. Her eyes were no longer mocking. There was something more vulnerable in them now, a hint of something I hadn't seen before. "You have no idea what it's like," she said quietly. "You think you've got it all figured out, don't you? But you don't. You don't know how hard it is, Myra. The constant pain. The emptiness." I looked at her, seeing something different in her eyes. Perhaps it was anger, or maybe something else, like pain. We were more alike than I had ever realized, and that realization hit me harder than I expected. "You know, Erica, it's not our fault we ended up like this," I said, my voice softening. "I know we've made mistakes, but we can change. I've been trying to, at least. I'm working on it." She laughed, but it wasn't mocking. It was almost bitter, tinged with a hint of something else. Hope, maybe? "You really think it's that easy?" she asked, her tone softer than it had been. "How do you live with the resentment? How do you keep going when the world seems so indifferent? How do you fight the urge to tear everything apart?" I thought for a moment before answering. I've tried to burn everything down. It just ends up hurting you in the end. Trust me, I know." Her gaze lingered on me, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of understanding in her eyes. But then, just as quickly, it was gone. She turned and continued walking, the sound of her boots crunching in the snow louder than before. "Well, maybe you've got the right idea," she muttered, though I could tell she wasn't convinced. We reached the end of the container maze, and in the distance, I saw a ship. It was small, but sturdy looking. It didn't seem abandoned. In fact, it looked like it had been well maintained. I wondered if she had arrived here on that ship. Is that your ship? I asked, my voice neutral, though I couldn't help the curiosity that crept in. Yeah, that's my baby, Erica said, her voice a little softer now, though there was pride in it. I call her Princella. She's cute, but she's got everything you need: torpedoes, guns, the works. I spared no expense getting her set up. I raised an eyebrow. Impressive. You'd be surprised what you can do when you stop caring about rules, she said, her voice dropping to a more serious tone. Now, can we focus? I've got your servers, but you're going to need to play nice. My eyes narrowed as I looked around, searching for any sign of deception. Can I see them now? I asked, my voice tight with anticipation. We rounded the last container, and I finally saw them. My servers are neatly arranged, but surrounded by explosives. The sight froze me in my tracks. At the top of one of the servers, a massive screen was displaying a timer counting down, each second ticking away like a ticking bomb. Now, give me the keys, or we're going to have ourselves a little fireworks show, Erica said, her smile turning wicked as she gazed at the screen. She sounded more excited about the countdown than the deal itself. I stared at the timer, my heart racing. Every instinct screamed for me to act, but I had to think quickly. The wrong move, and everything could go up in flames. Chapter 10. Myra. Now either give me the keys, or we're going to see some fireworks in the snow, Erica said, her voice filled with mockery as she smiled at me. For a brief moment, I was too stunned to speak. My eyes were fixed on my servers surrounded by explosives. The countdown had already started. Only 4 minutes and 55 seconds remained, but the numbers seemed to flicker faster the more I stared at them. You've got to be kidding me, I shouted, my voice echoing through the cold container. Erica laughed, her hand resting casually on a box of explosives, almost as if she were playing with something harmless. I see you like this gift very much, but I need to see those keys, Myra, Erica taunted. Or this will all be over soon. Stop the timer, Erica. I yelled, desperate, but she pressed a button on her small remote, and instantly, the timer lost 1 minute. The new time read 3 minutes and 26 seconds. Anger surged through me, and without thinking, I lunged at her, hoping to take the remote before she could cause any more damage. My werewolf speed gave me an advantage, and within a heartbeat, I had her pinned. But she tossed the remote away, and I heard it skitter across the floor. I went to grab it, but before I could move, she punched me hard across the jaw, and I tasted blood. I hesitated, but then I decided to deal with her first. Oh, so now we're throwing punches? I growled, gripping my cybernetic arm and aiming it at her face. She screamed as the punch landed, the force of it making her stagger back. Blood splattered across the floor as her nose broke with a sickening crack. She cried out in pain, her voice loud and desperate. I was about to land another blow, but before I could, she grabbed my cybernetic arm. I pulled back, but the glove slipped off, revealing the steel underneath. Her eyes widened in fear, but just as I aimed for another punch, I felt an agonizing pain shoot through my abdomen. My body went numb as silver burned through my nerves. Silver, Erica spat, her voice tinged with spite as she backed away. The knife she had stabbed into my stomach glowed faintly with the silver poison. They were right about that. Silver does mess with mutts. I could barely breathe as the pain intensified, but I managed to pull the knife out of my abdomen and toss it aside. Erica had stopped kicking me and was now searching for the remote. Despite the pain and the silver tormenting my body, I managed to pull myself up, feeling the weight of every movement. I reached into my coat for my gun, fighting through the fog in my mind. I aimed it at her just as she rose with the remote. Behind her, the countdown continued. Only 1 minute and 55 seconds remained. You know, Erica said, eyeing the gun, that's a cute little thing you've got, but it's no match for mine. I've got silver bullets, remember? She pulled out her gun, and before I could react, she fired. The silver bullet barely missed me, and I dodged instinctively, trying to keep my distance. I fired back, aiming at her head, but she easily dodged it and continued shooting. The silver bullets whizzed past me, each one more deadly than the last. I had no place to hide, and with every shot, the burning sensation in my leg from the earlier wound intensified. My cybernetic arm was the only thing I could use to protect myself, and I held it in front of my face, twisting on the floor to cover as much of my body as I could. I heard a bullet hit my arm, deflecting harmlessly away. But then, a bullet struck my leg. I screamed out in pain as the silver burned through my skin, the agony coursing through me like wildfire. The searing heat made my body twitch uncontrollably, like a wounded animal fighting for its last breath. Erica's laugh echoed in the space, her voice filled with sick satisfaction. "Now, that's a sight to behold," she said, her words dripping with malice. "I've always wondered just how much pain those silver bullets cause." Her words barely registered as the pain in my leg overwhelmed everything. The bullet was slowly poisoning me, and if I didn't do something, I might lose my leg. But I wasn't going to let that stop me. I grabbed my gun, my vision going red with fury. I didn't care about the pain anymore. I didn't care about the bleeding. All I wanted was to stop her. I wanted her to feel the same torment she had caused me. I aimed and fired again, hitting her shoulder. The impact made her drop the gun, but she didn't back down. Instead, she tried to keep moving, her legs unsteady from the injury. I fired again, this time hitting her in the leg, sending her crashing to the ground with a sharp cry. My leg was still bleeding, and I could barely feel anything in my abdomen, but I managed to drag myself toward her. Erica groaned in pain, clutching her shoulder, but she wasn't giving up. The remote was just within her reach, and I knew I had to act fast. I snatched the remote from the floor before she could get her hands on it. My fingers fumbled as I tried to find the button to stop the timer. Panic surged in my chest as I glanced at the countdown, only 1 second left. I pressed the button just as the timer hit 0, praying I had made it in time. Chapter 11. Hunter. "We should go," I told my brother after scouting the nearby area. I didn't find anything useful, just heaps of snow-covered junk and the ruins of the abandoned port. When I returned, I found Jorvik trying to maintain the communication link with the reinforcements, preparing for any situation that might go wrong. Something inside me told me things were going to take a turn for the worse. My wolf was restless, pacing inside me, urging me to find Myra. I could sense Jorvik's unease, too, though he was excellent at hiding his feelings. "Did you find anything?" he asked. I shook my head. He grunted. "I'm only getting static, and the weather's getting worse. We can't waste any more time." I agreed with him, and without hesitation, we started following Myra's footprints in the snow. We made our way through the maze of containers and ruins, moving cautiously. Eventually, we reached a wide clearing surrounded by large, frozen crane arms. One crane arm bent at a strange angle caught my attention. The sight made my wolf anxious. No wind could bend a crane like that. It was the work of something far more substantial. I shuddered, glancing at Jorvik, who was also surveying the area carefully. Myra's footprints stopped for a moment, then continued ahead. A few steps later, another set of footprints appeared. This pair took a U-turn, and I realized Serafina had followed them. Jorvik paused to kneel by the new set of prints, studying them intently. I remained alert, my eyes scanning the area for any sign of danger. The crooked crane arm still bothered me. "Who is it?" I asked. "Another female," Jorvik replied after a moment, standing up. "She's taller and heavier than Myra." Both of us turned toward the path the new footprints led, into the maze of shipping containers. We exchanged a look before heading in that direction with our guns drawn. Jorvik took the lead while I covered our rear, fully aware of the danger in this isolated area. Ambushes were all too easy here. We moved carefully, the cold wind making it harder to stay focused. Then, suddenly, we heard a scream, sharp and clear, cutting through the wind's sound. We both broke into a run, our hearts racing. The snow made breathing difficult, but we kept pushing forward, following the footprints as they twisted and turned through the containers. Each footstep brought us closer to Serafina. We heard another scream, followed by the sharp crack of gunshots. Jorvik shifted into his wolf form to move faster. I stopped to grab his gun, the compass, and the communication device before following him. My heart pounded as I ran. I needed to see Myra, alive and safe. The thought of gunshots being fired at her made my stomach turn. I regretted not going with her, but she had insisted on facing her sister alone. Somehow, she had talked us into trusting her. But now? I couldn't bear the thought of her being hurt. As we ran, frustration and anxiety built up inside me. The growls of Jorvik's wolf echoed ahead, followed by more gunshots. After the last gunshot, everything went eerily quiet. I pushed myself harder, desperation clawing at me. When I finally reached the site, my eyes immediately caught the blood-stained snow. Then I saw Jorvik's wolf lying motionless on the ground. My heart stopped. I rushed over to him, my breath catching in my throat. He didn't move. I searched for Serafina, but there was no sign of her. Only a trail of blood leading away from the container toward the port. The wind picked up, the snow falling harder, making it almost impossible to see clearly. But I could make out a figure far ahead. I wanted to follow it, but my brother's lifeless form lay in front of me. Serafina was nowhere to be seen, and the wind had entirely obscured her scent. I was torn. Should I follow the blood trail or check on Jorvik? The decision should have been simple, but in my panic, my mind struggled to focus. I chose to go to Jorvik first. I rounded the corner of the container and saw more blood staining the floor, but what truly shocked me was what I found next. The servers, surrounded by explosives, sat ominously in front of me. A massive screen above them was counting down in bright red numbers. Only 15 seconds remained. I felt a cold rush of fear as I reached for Jorvik's wolf, lifting his body, but the deep wound in his head sent a chill through me. His eyes were lifeless. I searched for a pulse, but there was nothing. Jorvik, I whispered, but there was no answer. I roared, my heart shattering at the loss. Ignoring the timer, I dragged Jorvik's wolf as far from the container as possible. The seconds were ticking away fast, 5 seconds left, but I wasn't going to give up, not like this. I phased into my wolf form, dragging Jorvik's body as quickly as I could, praying that Serafina was holding on. I'm coming for you, Myra, I thought, but first. Chapter 12. Jorvik. As soon as I heard the scream and the gunshots, I phased into my wolf and ran. Staying in my human form and pushing through the snow was inefficient. My only goal was to get to Serafina as soon as possible. I needed to see her, otherwise I was going to lose my mind. Hunter didn't follow me immediately. He stayed in his human form and didn't phase to cover me, and also communicated with the reinforcement in case things headed in the wrong direction. Even though the snow was thick, I ran as fast as possible. The closer I got to the noise, the more screams and gunshots I heard. Every time I heard a gunshot, I felt like I had been shot. I'd feel a stab in my heart, making me hurry more. I was praying for Serafina to remain unhurt. I couldn't see her hurt again. She'd already spent so much time in the hospital, broken and weak. Hunter and I had almost lost her once. We wouldn't be able to stay sane if we had to experience the same again. I ran faster, and when I finally reached the end of the maze, I heard the noises coming from a container nearby. When I circled it and reached its opening, I saw Serafina somehow standing upright, bloodied. Meanwhile, another female crouched on the ground nearby, severely bleeding and in pain. It took me a second to notice that beyond them, inside the container, were the servers and explosives surrounded them. A giant screen above had a timer that was almost at 0. I let out a growl, ready to leap and take Serafina away from there as soon as possible. Oh, we have a guest. The other female spoke through pain. Serafina turned around to see me, and her eyes widened. That was when I noticed that she was bleeding from her stomach and her leg. Her leg looked deeply injured, and this immediately made me want to tear the other female into shreds. That's one of the mutts you're fucking, isn't it? The female asked in disdain. Ugh, look at that ugly thing. I told you to come here alone, but I'm not surprised. Now take this. With that, she shot at Myra. I growled and lunged towards her. Jorvik! Serafina yelled behind me. I saw the female point a gun at me, but I dodged it. I was about to reach her and pin her down, but she shot me right in the head. Jorvik! I heard Seraphina's scream behind me as the force of the bullet jerked me back, and I landed on my side at an odd angle before hearing a bone snap. "You bitch! I will kill you." I heard Seraphina screaming and firing at her sister, but the latter laughed maniacally. I fought the pain that jabbed through my head, forcing my eyes shut. I pushed. I didn't want to go yet. I tried to growl, but I couldn't find the energy suddenly. It felt like my life was draining out of me. I smelled blood and felt something wet trickling down my snout. It was my blood. My hearing was numbing and my vision grew blurry. I saw Erica stumbling out of the container with her injured leg, holding something over her head. My eyelids grew extremely heavy. I couldn't keep them open anymore, and they finally fluttered shut. The pain in my head was too much to bear. It was a silver bullet, and that made me sad. Not because it was going to kill me. I was sad because I couldn't see Seraphina for the last time before my eyes closed. Before leaving, I wanted to feel her touch and hear her voice one last time. I would regret not marking her, but whatever time I had spent with her was beautiful. Whenever I go next, I will never forget those memories, in case I get to keep them. I'd fight to keep those memories of her with me, no matter what. As if answering my last wish, I felt 2 arms circling my neck in an embrace. One of those arms was made of metal. Myra. I wanted to call out for her, but I couldn't move. The bullet must have hit somewhere important. It felt like I was paralyzed by pain. But I could still hear, feel, and smell everything. I heard Myra's soft sobs above my head. She placed her head on mine, sobbing. I smelled her blood mingled with her tears. I wanted to tell her how much she meant to me, that I was still with her, and that I wasn't going to leave her. I just knew it. I was going to fight for her till the end. This wasn't my end yet. "I'm sorry, Jorvik," she sobbed. "I've been so terrible with you, and you're all being punished because of me. I don't deserve you." Her words hurt me. I wanted to tell her that she was speaking nonsense. I tried to tell her she was the best thing that had happened to me, even with how she used to push me away earlier. But that had made our union so much more worth it. I wanted to tell her that I loved her, that she had filled my brothers and my lives with so much happiness. She'd given us a new life and I couldn't be a part of it anymore. It saddened me deeply. I wish I could talk to her for the last time. "I love you, Jorvik. I will always love you," she whispered, kissing my head. "I'll fuck that bitch up for doing this to you. I'll skin her alive. She started sobbing again as she held my head close to her chest for the last time before gently laying my head down. Even though my head was splitting with pain, some consciousness still lingered in me. I heard her drag her injured leg through the snow. Meanwhile, I waited. I waited for death to come, but it didn't. Instead, I heard the sound of snow crunching, followed by my brother's voice. "Jorvik." He shouted my name, his voice laced with dread and sorrow. I wanted to tell him that I was still with him. I wanted to talk to him for the last time, too, but I couldn't even move my eyes. I felt him searching for my pulse, but when he found none, he screamed and started dragging me away. That's when I finally slipped into darkness. Chapter 13. Myra. I stared at the screen, wide-eyed. The timer was flashing 0 seconds. My heart hammered in my chest as I waited for the explosion that could take us both out, but nothing happened. Instead, Erica threw her head back and laughed mockingly. "That look on your face is priceless," she said, her voice pained from the gunshot wounds I had inflicted. I turned to her, confused. What does this mean? I wondered aloud, ready to stop her once and for all. If this were all a setup, I could still save my servers after I dealt with her. "Oh no," she laughed. "That was just to scare you. Do you think I'm that suicidal?" "You're insane," I sneered, "but I have the remote now." "That's a toy. The real one is right here." She chuckled through the pain and pulled another remote from beneath her bloodied clothes. "When I press this, there's no countdown. Straight to fireworks. Now that you know the score, give me the keys, Myra." "I'm done playing," she demanded, her voice thick with impatience and pain. She was crouching low, her body seemingly unable to rise. My wounds burned from the silver as well. I raised my gun at her, but she raised the remote, her finger hovering over the final button. I hesitated. My heart raced as I looked at my servers. It was either my death or all the sensitive information I had collected over the years would fall into the wrong hands. It was either my death or the fragile treaty between the wolves and the Drakens would be destroyed, leading to an all-out war. The decision weighed heavily on me. I swallowed hard, staring at the remote in her hand, her finger lingering over the button that could alter everything. "So, you're really going to end it all?" I asked, though I didn't need an answer. I was trying to buy time for myself to accept what was about to happen. I would die without ever seeing either of my mates again, and that thought brought a deep ache in my chest. The pain was unbearable, far worse than the silver knife or the bullet. I wished for one last moment with them. One more time to feel their touch, to hear their voices, to be with them. I longed to feel what it would have been like to complete the bond between us. But even though my wolf grieved that we wouldn't be able to mark them, I accepted it. It was for the best. I knew this was the moon goddess's doing. I had rejected the very one she had chosen for me, running from what she had given me. I probably deserved this, but my mates didn't. They deserved better than me. I was the one who had failed them, and that thought tore at me. "Anything to see you dead?" Erica laughed cruelly, but her laughter only sparked a final surge of defiance within me. It was the surge of power that comes right before the end, when death seems inevitable, but you refuse to surrender. "It makes me feel less insignificant to know that someone from my family is willing to die for me," I said, smiling genuinely at her, unlike the bitterness she wore on her face. Her smile faltered, and I saw something flicker in her eyes for a brief moment. "Wait, that's not what I meant," she snapped, sounding offended. But I could see that my words had touched her. Beneath the hate, beneath the cruelty, there was something I had reached. For a brief moment, she wasn't just the monster I thought she was. "Doesn't matter," I shrugged. Erica stared at me, her expression hardening, but her eyes betrayed something deeper, something human. I saw her wounds now, just as deep as mine. She was doing this because she had nothing left to lose. She'd never had anything worth holding on to, just like me, until the brothers found me. She didn't know what it was like to have someone to fight for. She didn't have a future with someone to look forward to. Suddenly, Erica looked up sharply. "Oh. We have a guest," she yelled, and I turned to see a giant black wolf glaring at her. "Jorvik." My wolf howled happily, thrilled to see one of her mates. For a brief second, Jorvik's wolf looked at me, his eyes scanning my injuries. He growled at Erica, his protective instincts kicking in. "That's one of the mutts you're involved with." "Ugh, look at that ugly thing. I told you to come here alone, but I'm not surprised. Now take this." Erica shot at me, and I ducked, using my cybernetic arm to shield myself. Whatever fleeting empathy I had for her evaporated in an instant. Jorvik growled and lunged at her. "Jorvik!" I screamed, watching his wolf race toward Erica while she fired at him. I saw the shot hit him in the head, and for a moment, I forgot how to breathe. The wolf jerked back, and I watched as he collapsed to the ground, lifeless. "Jorvik!" I cried out, my voice breaking. I watched as his wolf lay still, the wound from the silver bullet clear on his forehead. I was shaking, barely able to hold myself together. "You bitch! I will kill you!" I screamed, dragging myself toward Jorvik. My leg was burning with pain, but I didn't care. Nothing mattered anymore except getting to him. I lied. Haha. This time, the countdown's real. I'm getting out of here. Fuck you and your mate and those fucking servers. I heard Erica laughing as she limped away, her injured leg dragging behind her. I wanted to go after her, but I couldn't leave Jorvik's side. I collapsed beside him, pulling his wolf's head into my lap. Tears streamed down my face as I stared at the bleeding wound on his head. "I'm sorry, Jorvik," I sobbed, wishing I could do anything to save him. But it was too late. I couldn't bring him back. He was gone, and it was my fault. I've been so terrible with you. You're all suffering because of me. I don't deserve you, I cried, the weight of the loss crashing down on me. I love you, Jorvik. I will always love you. I kissed his head, feeling the world slipping away. It was just me and me now, and I wanted him for the last time, but the truth hit me. I would never get to feel that again. It was over. Erica's laughter echoed in my ears, and with it came a burning rage. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I was going to make her pay for what she'd done. "I'll make you regret this till your last breath," I muttered, wiping my tears away. I kissed Jorvik one last time, then gently laid his head on the ground. I had to follow her. She was injured, and this was the perfect time. I took one last look at my dead mate, my heart shattering. Then, with all the strength I had left, I followed the trail of blood in the snow. I would make her suffer for what she had done. Chapter 14. Myra. Even though I couldn't feel anything from my injured leg down to my knee, I kept dragging it through the snow, the sharp sting of cold biting into me with every step. My eyes were set on Erica, locked with murderous intent as she struggled ahead, her movements slow and labored. The blood dripping from her wounds was unmistakable, but it was clear that her healing capabilities were far inferior to mine. This was my advantage. She was losing more blood than I was, weakening with every passing moment. It was only a matter of time before I caught up to her. The thought of it brought a dark satisfaction to my chest. The pain in my leg was unbearable, but it paled in comparison to the burning rage inside me. Her bloodshot eyes flickered over her shoulder as I advanced. Her breath labored from both the pain and the effort of crawling through the snow. I was closing the gap, and each inch felt like an eternity. Despite my rage, the tears still came. The image of Jorvik's lifeless wolf flashed in my mind over and over again. It was an endless loop, replaying in my head like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I could feel the wound in my chest, deeper than any physical injury I had sustained. His loss had carved a hole inside me that nothing would ever fill. I let out a ragged breath. My Jorvik. I cried for him, but the anger was more intense than the sorrow. He was gone, and the person responsible for it was just ahead. Erica. She would pay for everything she had done to him. The snow whipped around me as if trying to slow me down, but I powered through, my gaze never leaving her. My muscles burned with exhaustion, but it didn't matter. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. When I was close enough, I pulled out my gun and aimed it at her remaining good leg. The shot rang out, piercing the air, and she screamed as the bullet hit its target. She collapsed onto the snow, her body going limp for a moment. Blood pooled around her, staining the snow beneath her. But even now, with her leg injured and weakened by blood loss, she refused to stay down. She dragged herself forward, inch by inch, determined to escape. Her spirit remained unbroken, despite her failing body. It made my blood boil, but at the same time, I had to admire her tenacity. It would make the process of revenge all the more satisfying. She wasn't going to escape me. Not now. Not after everything she had done. My breath came in ragged gasps as I advanced, every step filled with the weight of my grief and rage. When I was close enough to touch her, I lunged. The force of my movement knocked her to the ground again, and I pinned her beneath me. My hand wrapped around her throat, the anger in my chest making my vision blur. She struggled against me, but her body was weak. She didn't have the strength left to fight me off. "Where do you think you're going after killing my mate?" I growled, my voice much deeper now. It wasn't just my voice, it was my wolf's, merging with mine, pushing me forward. The silver burns on my skin were still raw, but my wolf was fueling me with energy, keeping me alive in this freezing climate. She wasn't about to let Erica get away, not after everything she had done. "I've got you now. What will you do?" I hissed, gripping her hair and pulling her head back, exposing her neck. She squirmed beneath me, but I could feel her strength fading. The cold was too much for her. The pain in her wounds was too much for her. She could hardly move now, and that made me smile a twisted satisfaction that felt like a release for everything I had been holding in. But then I felt something sharp and hot against my side, her silver knife. My heart pounded in my chest, and my blood boiled. Without hesitation, I grabbed the blade, ignoring the pain it caused, and yanked it from her hand. The rage inside me blotted out everything else. It was as if I couldn't feel anything but the need to make her pay. The knife was mine now, and I was going to make her feel everything. I spun her around, my fist connecting with her face with a sickening crack. Her nose shattered beneath my strike, and blood splattered across the snow. I didn't stop. I kept hitting her, each punch making me feel more detached from everything else. More detached from the world, from myself. From everything I once cared about. The only thing I felt now was this revenge. Don't worry. I'm not going to kill you quickly, I laughed bitterly, the sound of my voice unfamiliar. I'll make you suffer first. My laugh turned manic. You killed him, I screamed at her, the words raw with pain and fury. I found the silver knife again and pressed it to her lips. I'm going to start here, I said, my voice chillingly calm. I could see the fear in her good eye, the panic starting to set in. She tried to fight back, throwing a punch at my face, but it was weak, hardly more than a desperate attempt. I growled, my teeth bared, as I yanked her lower lip out and began to cut. The pain in my side was forgotten as I focused only on her. I didn't stop until her lip was gone completely. Her screams filled the air, but the howling wind drowned them. The cold snow beneath us was turning red with her blood, and I couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of satisfaction. I scooped up a handful of blood-stained snow and licked it, savoring the taste. Yes, this was what I wanted. My wolf's thirst for vengeance had driven me to this point. And now I was giving in to it completely. But then, something happened. A sudden flash of blinding light engulfed me, disorienting me. I staggered back, trying to regain my vision, but everything was too bright. I squinted, feeling the heat of the light against my skin, and for a moment, I thought I might be losing my mind. When the light faded, I blinked hard, trying to clear my eyes. The snow beneath me was gone. The cold had disappeared. I was standing in a vast, empty white space, the ground stretching out endlessly in every direction. The sky was white, just like the ground, with no horizon in sight. I was utterly disoriented. I looked down at myself and, to my shock, my wounds were gone. The blood was no longer staining my clothes. My leg, once mangled and bleeding, was healed. I pulled back my pant leg and saw nothing but smooth, unmarked skin. I touched the spot where the bullet had lodged, and there was nothing there. What? Where am I? I asked, my voice shaking with confusion. Am I dead? I whispered, the realization sinking in. No, you're not, a chilling voice answered from behind me. I froze, the sound sending a wave of fear down my spine. I turned slowly, my heart pounding, and there, standing in the white expanse, was the moon goddess. Moon goddess, I whispered, my voice barely audible as she chuckled darkly behind me. Chapter 15. Myra. Even though I couldn't feel anything from my injured leg down to my knee, I kept dragging it through the snow, the sharp sting of cold biting into me with every step. My eyes were set on Erica, locked with murderous intent as she struggled ahead, her movements slow and labored. The blood dripping from her wounds was unmistakable, but it was clear that her healing capabilities were far inferior to mine. This was my advantage. She was losing more blood than I was, weakening with every passing moment. It was only a matter of time before I caught up to her. The thought of it brought a dark satisfaction to my chest. The pain in my leg was unbearable, but it paled in comparison to the burning rage inside me. Her bloodshot eyes flickered over her shoulder as I advanced. Her breath labored from both the pain and the effort of crawling through the snow. I was closing the gap, and each inch felt like an eternity. Despite my rage, the tears still came. The image of Jorvik's lifeless wolf flashed in my mind over and over again. It was an endless loop, replaying in my head like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I could feel the wound in my chest, deeper than any physical injury I had sustained. His loss had carved a hole inside me that nothing would ever fill. I let out a ragged breath. My Jorvik. I cried for him, but the anger was more intense than the sorrow. He was gone, and the person responsible for it was just ahead. Erica. She would pay for everything she had done to him. The snow whipped around me as if trying to slow me down, but I powered through, my gaze never leaving her. My muscles burned with exhaustion, but it didn't matter. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. When I was close enough, I pulled out my gun and aimed it at her remaining good leg. The shot rang out, piercing the air, and she screamed as the bullet hit its target. She collapsed onto the snow, her body going limp for a moment. Blood pooled around her, staining the snow beneath her. But even now, with her leg injured and weakened by blood loss, she refused to stay down. She dragged herself forward, inch by inch, determined to escape. Her spirit remained unbroken, despite her failing body. It made my blood boil, but at the same time, I had to admire her tenacity. It would make the process of revenge all the more satisfying. She wasn't going to escape me. Not now. Not after everything she had done. My breath came in ragged gasps as I advanced, every step filled with the weight of my grief and rage. When I was close enough to touch her, I lunged. The force of my movement knocked her to the ground again, and I pinned her beneath me. My hand wrapped around her throat, the anger in my chest making my vision blur. She struggled against me, but her body was weak. She didn't have the strength left to fight me off. "Where do you think you're going after killing my mate?" I growled, my voice much deeper now. It wasn't just my voice, it was my wolf's, merging with mine, pushing me forward. The silver burns on my skin were still raw, but my wolf was fueling me with energy, keeping me alive in this freezing climate. She wasn't about to let Erica get away, not after everything she had done. "I've got you now. What will you do?" I hissed, gripping her hair and pulling her head back, exposing her neck. She squirmed beneath me, but I could feel her strength fading. The cold was too much for her. The pain in her wounds was too much for her. She could hardly move now, and that made me smile a twisted satisfaction that felt like a release for everything I had been holding in. But then I felt something sharp and hot against my side, her silver knife. My heart pounded in my chest, and my blood boiled. Without hesitation, I grabbed the blade, ignoring the pain it caused, and yanked it from her hand. The rage inside me blotted out everything else. It was as if I couldn't feel anything but the need to make her pay. The knife was mine now, and I was going to make her feel everything. I spun her around, my fist connecting with her face with a sickening crack. Her nose shattered beneath my strike, and blood splattered across the snow. I didn't stop. I kept hitting her, each punch making me feel more detached from everything else. More detached from the world, from myself. From everything I once cared about. The only thing I felt now was this revenge. "Don't worry. I'm not going to kill you quickly," I laughed bitterly, the sound of my voice unfamiliar. "I'll make you suffer first." My laugh turned manic. "You killed him," I screamed at her, the words raw with pain and fury. I found the silver knife again and pressed it to her lips. "I'm going to start here," I said, my voice chillingly calm. I could see the fear in her good eye, the panic starting to set in. She tried to fight back, throwing a punch at my face, but it was weak, hardly more than a desperate attempt. I growled, my teeth bared, as I yanked her lower lip out and began to cut. The pain in my side was forgotten as I focused only on her. I didn't stop until her lip was gone completely. Her screams filled the air, but the howling wind drowned them. The cold snow beneath us was turning red with her blood, and I couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of satisfaction. I scooped up a handful of blood-stained snow and licked it, savoring the taste. Yes, this was what I wanted. My wolf's thirst for vengeance had driven me to this point. And now I was giving in to it completely. But then, something happened. A sudden flash of blinding light engulfed me, disorienting me. I staggered back, trying to regain my vision, but everything was too bright. I squinted, feeling the heat of the light against my skin, and for a moment, I thought I might be losing my mind. When the light faded, I blinked hard, trying to clear my eyes. The snow beneath me was gone. The cold had disappeared. I was standing in a vast, empty white space, the ground stretching out endlessly in every direction. The sky was white, just like the ground, with no horizon in sight. I was utterly disoriented. I looked down at myself and, to my shock, my wounds were gone. The blood was no longer staining my clothes. My leg, once mangled and bleeding, was healed. I pulled back my pant leg and saw nothing but smooth, unmarked skin. I touched the spot where the bullet had lodged, and there was nothing there. "What? Where am I?" I asked, my voice shaking with confusion. "Am I dead?" I whispered, the realization sinking in. No, you're not, a chilling voice answered from behind me. I froze, the sound sending a wave of fear down my spine. I turned slowly, my heart pounding, and there, standing in the white expanse, was the moon goddess. Moon goddess, I whispered, my voice barely audible as she chuckled darkly behind me. Chapter 16. Myra. Goosebumps erupted across my skin as the moon goddess's eerie laughter echoed around me. It wasn't a sound of kindness or warmth. It was chilling, bone-deep, and sharp, reverberating through the stillness like an omen. My heart pounded in my chest, and terror clutched at my throat, making it hard to breathe. I felt like I was trapped in an endless void of white, surrounded by an oppressive silence that only her laughter seemed to break. Her voice, soft yet commanding, broke through the silence behind me. Myra, my child. I'm so glad to see you again. Every word she spoke seemed to send chills running down my spine. It was low, almost like a whisper, but it was too perfect, too powerful, too otherworldly. It didn't belong here. It was too much. And it was too much for me to bear. I couldn't turn to face her. It was as if some invisible force held me in place, forcing me to stay where I was. I couldn't see her, but I could feel her presence, like an overwhelming shadow looming over me. The oppressive weight of it suffocated me. Where am I? I asked, my voice trembling with a fear I could no longer hide. I felt like I was drowning in an ocean of white, with no shore in sight. Is this the afterlife? Did I die? If yes, then I want to see Jorvik, please. I begged, my words rushing out in desperation. The anguish in my chest felt unbearable, and I would give anything, everything, to hold him one last time. At my plea, the moon goddess only laughed. It was not a laugh filled with pity or understanding. It wasn't even a laugh of amusement. It was chilling and indifferent, as if my sorrow was something trivial, something beneath her notice. It crushed me in a way I had never imagined. This is a punishment. I know it is, I said, my voice cracking with emotion. You took my arm, and now you've taken one of my mates, I cried out, my hands clutching my chest, hoping to ease the unbearable ache that had taken over me. Her reply sent a jolt through me. I didn't take enough, she said, her tone so calm that it made my blood run cold. No, please, not Hunter too. What sort of punishment is this? I asked again, my voice filled with desperation. Anger, sorrow, regret, and self-loathing washed over me, one emotion crashing into the next, all jumbled up in my mind. I couldn't think clearly. I just needed it to stop. I needed to fix this. When I granted you the wish, you promised me you would accept whatever I had in store for you. I don't see you upholding that promise, she said, her voice smooth and silky, but with an edge of dark power behind it. Each word felt like a blow to my chest. I'm sorry for that. I've been foolish. I sobbed, my body trembling, shaking with the weight of my guilt. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I had let my pride get in the way. I had hurt the ones I loved the most, and now they were paying for it. Well then, you must honor that promise. If this is what I have in store for you, why not accept it? She asked casually, as if offering me a simple choice. Please, not my mates. You can take another arm, leg, or whatever you want, but not them. Please, I begged, my voice growing frantic. I would sacrifice anything if it meant I could keep them safe. Who are you to decide how I conduct my affairs? She asked, her voice hardening. I swallowed hard, feeling a wave of humiliation wash over me. She was right, of course. I wasn't in a position to make demands. And yet, there I was, begging. I fell to my knees, tears streaming down my face. An invisible force held me in place, unable to turn and face her. I felt small, insignificant, like a child begging for mercy, and I hated myself for it. I'm not questioning your ways, but please, this once. Let them go. I whispered, my voice barely audible. I know I made a huge mistake by not accepting them initially. I was blinded by pride and vengeance. I was foolish. I still am. I know that I must pay for not keeping my promise, but please, spare my mates. They don't deserve this. I've realized that I never deserved them. The silence that followed felt like an eternity. My heart ached with every second that passed. Had I lost them forever? Was this my punishment? Was there no way to undo the damage I had caused? For a moment, I thought she was gone. The oppressive feeling of her presence seemed to lift. But then I felt it again. Her presence was still there, as solid as ever, looming behind me like a dark cloud. When I blessed you with them, I never asked for a price, she spoke, her voice almost serene. But there was something darker beneath her words. There's always a price for everything, or else people take it for granted. Just like you did, she said, her voice carrying the weight of truth. I flinched at her words. They cut through me like a dagger. She was right. I had taken them for granted. They had given me everything, and I had done nothing but take. They had sacrificed so much for me, and I hadn't even fully understood their worth until it was too late. I tried to think of something I had given them, some sacrifice I had made, but nothing came to mind. That realization crushed me. I had been selfish and childish, demanding everything from them without ever truly appreciating what they had given. They deserved so much more than I had ever given them in return. I'm willing to pay the price now, Moon Goddess, I said, my voice firm despite the tears that still flowed freely down my face. I had to make this right. I couldn't let them suffer because of my mistakes. Oh, really? She asked, her voice dripping with amusement. Yes, I replied, my heart heavy with determination. I would do whatever it took. What will you give me? She asked, her voice now tinged with curiosity, as if she were testing me. I hesitated for a moment, but I knew there was only one thing of value to me. One thing that mattered more than anything else. You name it, I said, my voice filled with resolve. I had nothing left to offer, but I would give everything to save them. My life, my soul, it was theirs if it meant they could be free from this. The Moon Goddess laughed, the sound dark and mocking. Oh, really? You'd give me anything, she asked, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Anything. I cried out, my body shaking as I knelt before her. My hands clasped together in front of me, a silent plea for her mercy. Anything, she repeated, her voice becoming darker, almost predatory. I hesitated for a moment, but the fear of losing them overwhelmed me, and I repeated it with all the conviction I could muster. Anything. All right then. I'll take both of your mates, she said, her voice casual, as if she were choosing a prize from a list. No, I screamed, my heart breaking at the thought. Please not them. You said anything, she reminded me, her voice playful, but it only made my stomach twist in horror. Anything but my mates, I whispered, defeated. I want something valuable to you, and I see that you now understand how valuable they are, the Moon Goddess said, her voice dripping with malicious pleasure. No, please. Not my mates. I'm begging you, I cried, my voice raw with pain. I had nothing left to give. I had already given everything except them. What else do you have that's invaluable? She asked, her tone mocking as she watched me falter. I thought about everything I had, all the wealth, the power, the knowledge, but none of it mattered. It was just empty possessions. The only thing that truly mattered was Jorvik and Hunter. They were my heart, my soul. Without them, I had nothing. See, you don't have anything to offer me except for the brothers, the Moon Goddess pointed out, and her words struck me like a physical blow. She was right. I had nothing else. My soul, my heart, everything I had was tied to them. I'll give you my life, I said quietly, my voice barely audible. The Moon Goddess laughed, but it was hollow. Then what's the point of doing all this? She asked, her voice condescending. If it's a lesson you want to teach me, then I've learned it well, I assured her, my voice shaking but resolute. The price to be paid is still unsettled, she reminded me, her tone ominous. The weight of her words hung heavily in the air, pushing me further to the brink. I've decided then. I'll have your blood, she said, her voice cold and final. I'll give you that, I said instantly, the words leaving my lips without hesitation. Not your blood, she corrected me. I'll take that sister of yours. If you wish me to spare your mates' lives, then you must spare hers. Her words hit me like a hammer. I didn't understand at first, but then it clicked. She wanted my sister. I was confused for a moment, but then, realizing the cost, I nodded. I spare her life, I said freely, without a second thought. That doesn't end here, she said cryptically, her words stirring a sense of unease in my chest. Shortly, she'll reach out to you for an important favor. You mustn't turn her down then, the moon goddess said, and I felt the weight of her command. There it was, the catch. I had walked into this willingly, knowing there was no escape. But it didn't matter anymore. All that mattered was Jorvik and Hunter. If this ensures the safety of my mates, I started, my voice trembling with uncertainty, but the truth was clear. I would do anything for them. Yes, she answered, her voice final. I'll keep my word this time, I promised her, my heart heavy with the knowledge of what I had agreed to. Chapter 17. Jorvik. The first thing that assaulted my senses when I opened my eyes was a blinding sheet of white. The snow was everywhere, vast, unending, and the glare from the cold whiteness was enough to make my vision swim. I blinked several times, trying to adjust, but it felt like I was waking up from some long, deep sleep. My mind was sluggish, like I was coming out of a fog that refused to clear. It took a minute, maybe two, for my eyes to focus, and when they did, I saw nothing but a stormy gray sky and snowflakes falling relentlessly. The wind howled through the air, biting and cutting. It took me another few seconds to fully comprehend what was happening. My brain wasn't quite keeping up, and the confusion only deepened when I realized I was lying in the middle of the snow, cold seeping through my clothes, my body stiff from the frozen ground. I lay there, unable to move for a few moments, trying to understand what was going on. What was I doing here? Why was I lying in the snow, staring up at a sky that seemed to swallow me whole? I tried to push myself up, but the effort felt heavy. My body seemed distant, not fully responding to my commands. There was no clear memory of how I got here, just an overwhelming sense of disorientation. The cold seeped into my bones, but the actual discomfort came from the fog in my mind. It was like my memory was missing, fragmented into nothingness. When I finally managed to sit up, I glanced around. The snow stretched endlessly around me, the wind whipping it in every direction, but I couldn't recognize where I was. I didn't recognize this place at all. The snow seemed to go on forever, and in the distance, towering shipping containers loomed. I stared at them for a moment, the feeling of déjà vu washing over me like a cold wave. They looked familiar, but the memories attached to them were hazy, slipping through my fingers when I tried to grasp them. I rubbed my head, my fingers brushing against my scalp as I tried to make sense of it all. A sharp, agonizing pain shot through my skull, and I hissed. Why did my head hurt so much? I didn't remember injuring myself, yet the pain was undeniable. I searched my head for any wounds, but there were none. Still, the pain throbbed behind my eyes like an uninvited guest. The pain wasn't unbearable, but it was persistent. And then, as if on cue, my wolf took over, pushing the ache back. His healing abilities were quick, and soon the pain started to dull, fading into a dull throb that I could ignore. But the confusion, that feeling of being lost, remained. I stood up, brushing the snow off my body, and tried to steady myself. Where was I? How did I get here? The questions spun in my head, but no answers came. I needed to figure this out quickly. My wolf was on edge too, sensing something wasn't right. We were too vulnerable here, and I had no memory of how I arrived. A groan echoed through the cold air. I turned sharply, instantly on alert. Hunter. I rushed toward the sound, following it until I found him, sprawled out in the snow. His body was still, and his face was scrunched in confusion. He was disoriented, just as I was. Hunter, I called out as I crouched beside him. My hand moved quickly to check his vitals, but he was breathing slowly, but steadily. His eyes fluttered open, and after blinking a few times, he focused on me with a confused expression. What happened? He asked, his voice rough and tired like he had been asleep for hours. I shook my head, still trying to piece things together. I'm trying to figure out the same thing, I said, pulling him up to a sitting position. I studied him, watching his face for any sign of recognition, anything that would tell me we were both on the same page. Do you know this place? Do you remember how we got here? I asked, my voice edged with concern. Hunter shook his head, the confusion clear in his eyes. What's the last thing you remember? He asked, as though hoping I could unlock something in him, just as I was trying to do in myself. I racked my brain, but all I could come up with was the faintest memory. The last clear image in my mind was having breakfast with Myra, the warmth of the room, and her smile as we ate together. It felt distant, like a memory from another life. "Having breakfast with you and Myra," I said, my voice uncertain. "What about you?" Hunter nodded slowly, trying to grasp the thread of his memory. "My last memory is us in the car, driving through an abandoned harbor town." His voice trailed off, as though he was still searching for something more, something he couldn't quite reach. I frowned. "What else do you remember?" I pressed, hoping that something else would come to him. But the more I tried to dig, the more I realized just how little I knew. There was a fog surrounding my mind, and I couldn't make it clear. The pain in my head was still there, a dull hum in the background. "I remember reinforcements," Hunter continued, his brow furrowed. "No, they were backup." "I remember urgency, like we were on a mission. I was trying to reassure Serafina while you were in the front driving." I searched my mind for anything that might match what he was saying, but I couldn't find anything. All I could remember was breakfast, and then a sense of unease, like I had missed something. My memories didn't match up with his, and that only deepened the confusion. I narrowed my eyes. If we were reinforcements, then we were on a mission. It had to have been important. Dangerous. I was trying to piece together a coherent story, but the more I thought about it, the more questions arose. Hunter glanced around. "Where's Myra?" His voice was sharp with concern, and I felt my panic rise. We had been separated, but where was she? Without thinking, I phased, letting my wolf take over. The shift was immediate, and I felt the world sharpen as my senses heightened. I sniffed the air, but the wind was strong, carrying away any scent that might have been there. The urgency in my chest grew, and I started to run, pushing through the maze of shipping containers. My wolf was relentless, driven by the need to find her. Behind me, I heard Hunter speaking into the comms device, but I didn't stop to listen. The cold wind howled, but my focus was only on one thing: Myra. We ran through the snow-covered labyrinth of containers, my heart racing. Every second that passed, the sense of danger increased. I could feel it deep in my chest, like a sword hanging over me. I could hear Hunter behind me, trying to keep up. "Jorvik, did you hear that?" he called out, breaking my focus for a moment. I stopped, straining my ears against the wind. It was faint, but I could hear its soft sobs, muffled but unmistakable. My heart skipped a beat. "Sobs," I whispered. Without wasting another second, we sprinted in the direction of the sound. It didn't take long to find the source. We exited the maze of containers and came upon a clearing, the sobs growing louder. And there, lying in the snow beside a final container, was Myra. She was slumped against the cold ground, looking tired and defeated. As soon as her eyes locked with mine, they brightened, a surge of recognition flooding her face. "Jorvik," she cried out, her voice raw with emotion. Without a second thought, I rushed to her side and scooped her up, holding her tightly. She clung to me, her sobs turning into cries of relief. "He's back," she murmured through her tears, burying her face in my neck as if trying to reassure herself that I was real. I could feel the trembling in her body, the weight of everything she had endured. Hunter came up beside us, his eyes scanning the area as he pulled off his jacket and wrapped it around her. Myra didn't seem to notice, too focused on me, too relieved to see me again. "It's okay. We're here, baby girl," I whispered, my voice soft and soothing as she clung to me. I felt a tightness in my chest. The relief of seeing her alive was overwhelming, but the fear that still gripped me was hard to shake. Serafina looked up at me, wide-eyed, as though she couldn't believe I was really there. "Jorvik, is that you?" she whispered as if the sight of me was too much to take in. I nodded, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Of course, it's me, baby girl. You're safe now." She broke into more tears, clinging to me like I was her lifeline. "It's okay," I whispered, kissing her forehead. "I've got you, Myra." But even as I held her, I knew that there were still so many unanswered questions. The pain in my head had not fully subsided, and the mystery of what had happened to bring us here remained unsolved. But for now, I focused on the warmth of Myra in my arms, knowing that, for this moment, we were together again. Chapter 18. Hunter. I stared at the scene before me, my eyes lingering on the explosives and the large screens, a feeling of unease settling in my stomach. Something about this place, the setup, and the situation felt all wrong, but I couldn't quite pinpoint why. The confusion had already taken root in my mind ever since I woke up from what felt like a fever dream. Everything around me felt like it was a part of some strange nightmare, too real to be just a dream, but too surreal to be true. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something important, something crucial to understanding what was happening, but no matter how hard I searched my mind, the answers remained elusive. The snow continued to swirl around us, adding to the disorientation. I looked at the screens, the ticking countdown, and the servers surrounded by crates of explosives. A flood of images flashed in my mind, fragments of memories that seemed to belong to someone else. I couldn't place it, but I felt a horrible sense of déjà vu creeping up on me, the feeling of having experienced all of this before. My chest tightened, a cold sweat forming on my brow. It was too familiar, and that was what disturbed me most. Serafina was crying in Jorvik's arms, her sobs racking her body as she clung to him. Her face was pale, and her eyes were wide with terror. It was as if she had seen the very worst thing imaginable. It was breaking my heart to see her like this, but I couldn't understand why she was so terrified. We had been searching for these servers for a long time. They were supposed to be the key to solving everything. I wanted to ask her why she seemed so shaken, but I knew better than to push her right now. The last thing we needed was to make her more frantic than she already was. The servers, I said, trying to break the tension. I looked at the scene again, my eyes landing on the massive stacks of data storage. We've finally found them. My heart sank as the words left my mouth. I could feel the weight of the situation settling on me. We were here for Myra's servers, stolen by her sister, and now, at last, we had found them. It should have been a moment of triumph, but instead, all I could feel was confusion. We need to take them back, Jorvik said softly, stroking Myra's hair as she continued to sob in his arms. I could see the pain in his eyes, but determination was also there. He wanted to get out of this place. I could sense it, too. But I wasn't so sure anymore. Despite all the progress, despite all the searching, something about this place didn't sit right with me. I wanted to ease Myra, too, but the nagging feeling of unease wouldn't leave me. I could feel it now every time I blinked. Images. Horrible, unsettling images. Blood, gore, chaos. The memories flickered in front of me, one after another, each more disturbing than the last. Jorvik's wolf, covered in blood, my mind shuddered at the image. What was happening to us? I didn't understand any of it. It felt like something was pulling me deeper into this nightmare, and I couldn't escape. The world around me seemed to be spinning, as if I were caught in a storm of confusion and terror. Was I hallucinating? Were the surroundings messing with my head? The vivid images were making my stomach turn, and I couldn't make sense of them. No, Serafina whispered suddenly, her voice shaking. I'm not taking them back anymore. I blinked, completely thrown off by her words. What? You wanted to find them so desperately. They have all your work. Why wouldn't you want to take them anymore? I asked, trying to understand. But Serafina just shook her head, more tears streaming down her face. I reached out, gently brushing my hand across her cheek. The sparks from the mating bond flared, trying to calm both of us, but the connection didn't seem to help as much as it usually did. I needed her to be safe, but I could feel my own anxiety rising. I'm starting to remember something, Jorvik said, his voice low, but filled with that familiar determination. Your sister called us here, didn't she? We spent the whole day yesterday planning for this. His words hit me like a jolt of electricity, and for a moment, everything stopped. My head spun as I tried to remember what had happened. We had been planning something. We had been driving through that abandoned harbor town. But there were too many gaps in my memory, too many missing pieces. I couldn't recall how we got here, why we were here, or how everything had gone so wrong. There are gaps in my memories, I admitted to Jorvik, my voice filled with frustration. I saw the same confusion mirrored on his face. He was going through the same thing, struggling to put together the puzzle of our missing memories. Meanwhile, Serafina watched us intently. Her face was still pale, but her eyes were filled with something else, fear. A deep, consuming fear. It was unsettling. She didn't feel safe here. I could see it in the way her eyes darted around, constantly scanning her surroundings. "We need to get out of here," Serafina muttered, her voice strained. She looked at us with wide eyes, and it hit me that she knew something we didn't. Something that made her terrified even to be here. But she didn't say anything more, and I couldn't force her to. Whatever had happened, whatever had caused her fear, was something she wasn't ready to share. Yet, that unspoken terror made my own anxiety spike. We needed to leave fast. "I'll try to reach out to the reinforcements," I said, pulling out the comms device. My fingers were trembling as I dialed, but the static that greeted me only made the anxiety worse. The weather was interfering, and I couldn't get through. "We'll get out of here soon, baby girl," Jorvik said softly, trying to reassure Serafina. But I could see that his words didn't bring her much comfort. She was still shaking, her face a mask of fear. "I'm calling in the reinforcements to get these out," I declared, my voice firm. I knew we couldn't stay here any longer, not with everything feeling so wrong. We had to leave, no matter what. "No," Serafina hissed again, her voice suddenly sharp. "I said we're not taking them back. We're all leaving this place now." I was caught off guard. "But why?" I asked, the confusion in my voice more apparent. Jorvik mirrored my confusion. "We had been looking for these servers for so long. They contained critical information. Why wouldn't she want to take them now that we had finally found them?" "It's not worth it," Serafina whispered, shaking her head slowly. Her voice was empty, like she had already made up her mind, but there was something in her eyes that made me hesitate. A dark shadow seemed to fall over her, and I realized that she had seen something that had broken her spirit. "What does it mean?" Jorvik asked, his voice low but filled with concern. I can't take them back anymore," Serafina repeated, her eyes wide and distant. "They're too risky. I don't want to lose them, no. I cannot do this anymore." Her voice cracked, and she began sobbing again. Jorvik tried to comfort her, brushing her hair from her face, but I could tell he was just as shaken as I was. This wasn't the Serafina we knew, the determined, driven woman we had come to rely on. Something had broken in her, and it terrified me. "Are you sure you want to blow this all up?" I asked carefully, still hesitant. It didn't feel right. So much was at stake, and we couldn't just destroy everything like this. "I don't care about that stuff anymore," Serafina snapped, her voice sharp with emotion. "I'm telling you, it's not worth it. No. I'm not taking them back with me. Blow this shit up, and let's get out of here." "Let's pretend this ever happened," she said, her words cold and final. The coldness in her tone sent a chill down my spine. It was like she had completely shut down, and whatever had broken her was too much for any of us to understand. "Do you remember what happened?" Jorvik asked her, his voice full of caution. But her answer was louder, more desperate. She knew what had happened, and it terrified her. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong here. "Give us one proper reason to blow up the servers," I said, my voice insistent. "I don't want you to regret this later." "I'll never regret this. Trust me," she said darkly, her words final. Jorvik and I exchanged a glance, both of us still unsure, but we knew we had no other choice. It had to be done. "All right. Let's get out of here," Jorvik said, his voice resigned but firm. I nodded, moving to stand next to him. "Take her." "I'll see how this could be set off," I said, but Serafina wasn't having it. "No, I'm not leaving anyone behind." "You're coming with us," she said defensively, her eyes wild with determination. "I'm not staying back here, Myra," I assured her, but she wasn't convinced. "The remote to start the timer is somewhere here," she said, her voice suddenly full of purpose. "Timer?" Jorvik asked, looking at the screen with confusion. I felt that familiar, sickening feeling again, the déjà vu growing stronger as more bloody images flashed in front of my eyes. I couldn't make sense of them, and it was making my head spin. "I got it," Serafina said suddenly, holding a small remote in her hands. Give it to me, Jorvik said, his voice urgent. Hunter, take her. I'll set it. No, she growled, her face fierce. I'm not leaving either of you behind. Her voice echoed through the container, a mixture of panic and determination. Myra, it's okay. Give it to me. I will see to it, Jorvik said gently, but she wasn't backing down. I know how to start the timer, she snapped. We'll have 5 minutes to get out of here and run as far away as possible, she said, her voice filled with resolve. All right. You don't have to run. Jorvik and I will phase. You can ride either of us, I suggested, stepping forward to take the remote, but she jerked away from me. I'm starting the timer, and we're all getting out of here now, she commanded. The strength in her voice made it clear that there was no changing her mind. Jorvik and I exchanged a glance before nodding. All right, I said, my voice low. We're leaving now. Jorvik shifted once again, and I was about to move too, but then I caught the look of hesitation on Serafina's face. Was she having second doubts? I wondered. But before I could ask, a determined look flashed across her face. She pressed the button on the remote, and the screen lit up with numbers. The countdown had begun. And there was no turning back now. Chapter 19. Myra. I tried not to stare at Jorvik's wolf as he shifted, but I couldn't help it. My mind screamed at me, replaying the gruesome images of his dead wolf, the blood-soaked fur, the emptiness in his eyes. The vision of that silver bullet lodged in the center of his forehead refused to leave me. It was as though those haunting images were etched into my very soul. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it all again. Jorvik's wolf, unmoving, lifeless, his once bright eyes now void of life. I couldn't forget it, no matter how hard I tried. It was as if his death was permanently branded in my mind, a punishment from the moon goddess for my failure to uphold the bargain I had made. The weight of the images hit me instantly. A wave of nausea rose in my chest as I fought the tears back, reminding myself that Jorvik and Hunter were alive, and they were in one piece now. They were with me. Alive. But their lives were tethered to the bargain I had made with the moon goddess, a bargain I hadn't shared with them. And they didn't need to know. I glanced at Hunter's wolf, who was running beside us, and then quickly looked away. The sight of them both in their wolf forms was beautiful in its own right, but it also reminded me of everything I had almost lost. I climbed onto Hunter's wolf's back, my hands trembling. My body felt like it was made of lead, weighed down by the grief and the fear I had been carrying for so long. I tried to shake it off, but it clung to me, just as the shadows of my past mistakes did. Jorvik's wolf grunted, leading the way through the thick snow, his powerful legs cutting through the terrain with ease. I checked the compass to ensure we were heading in the right direction. My heart raced in my chest, but it wasn't from the physical exertion of riding Hunter's wolf. It was because of the promise I had made that seemed to have bound me more tightly than any physical chains ever could. The more I thought about it, the more I regretted making the deal. I had never wanted this kind of responsibility. I had never asked for this pain, this sacrifice. But now that it was a part of me, I couldn't take it back. I could only move forward, desperately trying to protect the ones I loved. The two wolves ran fast, their bodies moving with a fluid grace despite the thick snow that impeded our progress. The minutes seemed to stretch into hours, but I kept my focus. The countdown in my mind continued to tick down. The bomb would explode soon, and we would have no choice but to run. When it finally happened, the explosion shook the ground beneath us. The heat from the blast rushed toward us, and for a brief moment, I could feel the flames licking at the air, even from a distance. Hunter and Jorvik's wolves didn't break stride. They ran faster, instinctively, pushing forward as though they were racing against time. I glanced over my shoulder, unable to stop myself. The fire was massive, swallowing the container's whole, flames curling upward, crackling and popping. The force of the explosion was blinding, a stark reminder of how close we had come to disaster. I sighed, leaning my head against Hunter's wolf's back. The exhaustion hit me like a freight train. The adrenaline that had kept me running for so long suddenly drained out of me, leaving me weak and spent. My eyelids grew heavy, and the cold wind against my skin seemed to lull me into a strange calm. I tried to fight it, to stay awake, but it was no use. The weight of everything, the fear, the pain, the guilt pressed down on me, making it impossible to keep my eyes open. I rested my head against Hunter's wolf, and the rhythmic pounding of his paws against the snow seemed to soothe me, like a lullaby. The exhaustion took over me quickly, and before I knew it, I slipped into unconsciousness. But when I closed my eyes, I didn't find rest. Instead, I saw blood. Jorvik's wolf, drenched in blood, is not moving. Hunter's wolf, the same blood covering their fur, their bodies lifeless and cold. Panic seized me. I wanted to scream, to move, to wake them up, but my body was frozen. It was as if the sight of their dead forms had paralyzed my whole being. I tried to move, to touch them, to check their pulses, but I was bound, unable to move a muscle. The more I struggled, the more immobile I became until I felt like I was turning into stone, trapped in this horrible nightmare. Then I heard laughter, echoing in the distance. At first, it was a soft chuckle, and I couldn't place the source. But soon, the laughter grew louder, more maddening, until it reverberated in my skull, rattling me from the inside out. It sounded too familiar. It was Erica's laughter. Her cruel, mocking tone, echoing through the darkness, grew louder with every passing second. I killed 2 alpha wolves. I'll have their heads on the wall of my ship's cabin. They'd look so beautiful there. Her words cut through the silence, each one sharper than a knife, and I felt the agony of her words hit me like a physical blow. I will kill you. I roared, but my voice was weak, swallowed by her laughter. It echoed around me, drowning out my cries until I couldn't hear my voice anymore. I wanted to stop her, to make her pay for what she had done, but I couldn't. All I could do was sit there, helpless, weeping at the sight of my mates lying dead before me. What did you do to them? I cried out, my voice hoarse and broken, but Erica didn't answer. She didn't have to. Her laughter said everything. It was as if she took pleasure in my suffering, in breaking me down piece by piece. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the laughter stopped. The darkness swallowed me whole. My heart raced as I called out for Jorvik and Hunter, but there was no response. I was alone, completely and utterly alone. I stumbled through the endless darkness, desperately searching for them, but no matter where I went, they weren't there. I called their names again and again, but the silence remained, suffocating me. And then, as if the weight of it all was too much, I collapsed to the ground, my body giving out from under me. I pulled at my hair, my fingers tangling in the strands as I sobbed uncontrollably. I've lost everything now. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks, and I couldn't stop the flood of tears that followed. The grief was so overwhelming that it felt like it would swallow me whole. You didn't keep your word this time, so I took them, the voice of the moon goddess boomed, shaking the darkness around me. It was like her words had power over me, binding me in place. You'll never see them again. You didn't deserve them either way. Please, no, I tried. Please, I begged, my voice raw and desperate, but there was no response. The moon goddess had already condemned me. There was no way out. The darkness continued to close in on me, the claustrophobia suffocating me, making it harder to breathe. I heard a strange rattling sound behind me, and when I turned to look, I saw massive jaws, teeth bared, closing in on me. I screamed as they snapped shut around me, and everything went black. I woke with a start, gasping for breath, drenched in cold sweat. My heart pounded in my chest as I looked around, frantically searching for where I was. The familiar wallpaper of the brothers' house greeted me. I was in their bed, and every inch of my body ached. It was as though I had been through hell. I tried to move, but my legs didn't respond. Panic set in, and I struggled to call out, but my throat was dry. No sound came from my lips. My heart raced in fear, and I felt an overwhelming sense of nausea, like something was terribly wrong. Hunter. I tried to call, but the words barely escaped. My throat was too dry. Jorvik. My voice cracked as I coughed violently, pain shooting through my chest. It felt like I was burning from the inside out. I collapsed back into the bed, struggling to breathe. My lungs felt tight, as if something was pressing on them, making it impossible to take in a full breath. Sweat poured from my forehead, and I could feel the world spinning around me. The door burst open, and Jorvik rushed in. The moment his eyes landed on my face, his expression changed, panic flooding his features. He screamed for Hunter, calling for someone from the pack hospital, but all I could focus on was him. I needed him. I needed Hunter. I needed them both. "Baby girl, are you all right?" Jorvik asked, his voice filled with fear. He sat next to me, pulling me into his arms, and instantly, a wave of relief washed over me. His presence grounded me, but the pain in my body refused to let up. It felt like I was being torn apart from the inside out. And then it hit us both. "You're in heat, baby girl," Jorvik said darkly, his voice filled with realization. Chapter 20. Myra. Jorvik's voice was deep, carrying a sense of urgency and inevitability. "It's time, baby girl," he said, and I could hear the weight of those words. A realization washed over me. The moment had finally arrived. I parted my lips to respond, but my throat felt dry, and a coughing fit took over instead. I could barely catch my breath between the coughs. "Water," I managed to choke out, my voice barely above a whisper. Jorvik, ever attentive, reached for the pitcher on the bedside table, only to curse when he found it empty. Without a word, he stepped out of the room, returning a moment later with a glass of water. A wave of relief swept over me at the sight of it. I didn't realize how much I needed it until it was in my hands. "Here, I've got you," Jorvik murmured, holding the glass to my lips. I drank quickly, letting the cool water ease the dryness in my throat, and I felt a little more grounded as I did. It was then that Hunter burst into the room, his eyes widening when he saw me. His presence filled the space, and I could see the realization in his eyes. "She's ready," Hunter said softly, almost as if to himself. I noticed the nurse, who had been hovering nearby, slip away quietly, her movements barely noticeable. Hunter stood there, frozen for a moment, as if processing everything. His gaze intensified as he took in the situation, his expression unreadable at first, but something primal flickered beneath the surface. Inside me, my wolf stirred, restless and eager, feeling the pull of the bond one had longed for. It was time. For so long I had waited for this moment, this connection that would bind us all together. My wolf was impatient, knowing that this bond had been waiting to be completed, that the final piece of us all needed to fall into place. "Come here," I said, the words coming out in a low, throaty tone. My voice had shifted, becoming darker and deeper, almost a growl. It was my wolf speaking now, a demand rather than a request. Jorvik's strong arms wrapped around me, pulling me closer as he held me with a tenderness that contrasted the growing urgency within me. I let him hold me, but my eyes never left Hunter's. I needed both of them. The thought had crossed my mind before how much I craved the bond with both of them, the connection that would seal us as a unit. It was never enough to be with them individually. It was this moment, this connection, that I had been waiting for. "I need you both," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion, my heart pounding in my chest. I felt a deep ache within me, a need that had been growing for so long. I could feel the tension building, the desperate longing to close the distance between us all finally. Hunter's gaze softened for a brief moment, but then something darker flickered across his face. He stepped forward, his movements slow but purposeful, as though he were deciding how to approach this moment. "So demanding," Hunter muttered under his breath, a teasing edge to his voice. But there was no mistaking the desire that burned in his eyes. He wanted this, too. The primal connection between us all was undeniable. Jorvik and Hunter seemed to move in sync, each one contributing to the slow, deliberate unfolding of the bond we were about to complete. Their attention was on me, their focus unyielding, but there was a tenderness in the way they worked together. My body responded in kind, every part of me attuned to them, craving the completion of the bond. Yet, as the intensity of the moment built, I felt a sharp ache wash over me, a wave of pain that made me gasp. I clung to Jorvik, seeking comfort from the one who had always been there to steady me. "I've got you, baby girl," Jorvik assured me softly, his voice a calm amidst the storm raging inside me. He began removing my clothes gently, each movement slow and deliberate, his touch light and reassuring, even as the tension between us built. The kiss we shared was soft at first, but the hunger between us quickly turned it into something more. I heard the sound of clothing tearing, but I didn't care. The need to be connected with them was far greater than any physical boundaries. Hunter stepped closer, his hands gripping the sides of my face, his lips finding mine in a kiss that was just as fierce, just as urgent. But there was something deeper beneath the surface, something more than just passion. There was a deep, undeniable connection, a promise that we were bound together. Jorvik's hands roamed over my body, his touch igniting a fire wherever he made contact. His lips found the soft curve of my neck, trailing heated kisses down to my shoulder, making me shiver with anticipation. "My baby girl is finally ready to take this step," Jorvik whispered in my ear, his words sending a shiver down my spine. "Please," I breathed, the word escaping me in a rush of need. Jorvik's voice remained steady, but I could hear the desire underneath. "We're right here, baby girl," he said, his words full of reassurance. As the bond between us deepened, there was a sense of completion, as though everything was falling into place. I felt whole in a way I never had before. Chapter 21. Myra. I rested my head against Hunter's shoulder, feeling the warmth of his skin against mine, my breath coming in short gasps. The room felt heavy with the aftereffects of everything that had just happened. My body was complete in a way I couldn't quite describe, a tightness that left me both overwhelmed and comforted. My muscles tried to find their rhythm, to relax, but they couldn't seem to do so completely. "Just breathe." Hunter's voice broke through the silence, soft and soothing. His fingers ran through my hair in a slow, calming motion. "Are you all right?" His concern was evident, the worry in his tone clear even as he tried to keep his composure. "Yeah," I sighed, trying to regulate my breathing. A wave of discomfort passed through me, but it soon gave way to a rush of warmth that felt oddly comforting. "How do you feel?" Jorvik's voice was warm as it reached my ears, his breath fanning across my neck, sending a shiver down my spine. He placed gentle kisses on my shoulder, making my heart flutter with emotion. "I feel good," I whispered, my voice shaking slightly. "I feel complete," I added softly. There was a sense of peace, of belonging, that I hadn't felt before. I looked up at Hunter, meeting his gaze. His eyes were darker now, intense, but full of something more profound. His canines were faintly visible, a subtle hint of his primal nature, but there was a hesitation, as if he was holding back. "You're such a good girl, taking everything with such strength." Jorvik's voice was deep, full of pride. He always knew what to say to make me feel cherished. His words wrapped around me like a warm embrace, and I shuddered at the effect they had on me. "I want more," I whispered, my voice thick with desire. "Please don't hold back." "I need this, need both of you," I confessed, my body burning with a need I couldn't ignore. I wanted to be closer to them, to fully connect with them in this moment, to seal this bond completely. Hunter's gaze darkened even more, his control slipping. "Be careful what you wish for, Myra," he warned, his voice hushed, full of quiet intensity. He pulled back for a moment, his movements slow but deliberate, as if he were savoring every second. I moaned softly as his actions pulled me closer to the edge, every part of me reacting to the connection we shared. Jorvik's hands were on me again, holding me tightly, his lips finding mine in a kiss that was both tender and urgent. It was like the world had narrowed down to just the two of them and me, our connection solidifying with each moment that passed. "You like this?" I gasped between kisses, feeling the intensity grow. "I can feel it, feel you both." Jorvik pulled me even closer, his lips traveling to my neck, his hands sliding down to my body with slow precision. "You're so perfect for us, Myra," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. As our movements began to sync, I felt an overwhelming wave of connection wash over me. It wasn't just about the physical, it was the emotional weight of everything we had been through together, the bond that was being built with every touch, every kiss. The heat between us grew, but it wasn't the kind of heat that burned. It was the kind of heat that nourished, that brought us closer together, fusing us in ways I had never imagined possible. "I want this," I breathed. "I want all of this, no more waiting. I'm ready to give you everything." Jorvik's breath hitched behind me, and I felt him move closer, his arms wrapping around me like a protective shield. He kissed my neck again, the touch sending a surge of warmth through me. His words, low and steady, seemed to resonate deep within me. "We're here, Myra. You're not alone. You've never been alone." I could feel Hunter's presence next to me, his hand gently cupping my face, his lips brushing mine in a kiss that spoke of everything unsaid. His gaze was unwavering, his love clear in the way he looked at me. I felt a deep connection that went beyond words. The rhythm between us grew, the movements sinking in a way that felt natural, as though we had always been meant to be here, together. But it wasn't just physical. Every touch, every kiss, was a promise. A promise that we would be there for each other, no matter what. "I'm with you," Hunter said, his voice low and steady. "We're both here, Myra. We always will be." Jorvik's voice was just as sincere. "We won't leave you. You're ours, and we're yours. Always." The intensity of the moment built, and everything else seemed to fade away. There was no room for doubt, no space for fear. There was only this connection. It wasn't about the heat anymore, it was about trust. It was about the bond we had formed, and it was unbreakable. Hunter's hands were gentle on my skin, his touch firm but kind. I could feel the care in every movement, the way he guided and protected me. Jorvik's lips on my neck, his hands holding me tight, made me feel safe, cherished. The connection between us was undeniable, and it wasn't just about what we shared physically. It was the emotional ties that bound us, ties that had been forming since we first met, strengthening with each passing day. "We're yours, Myra," Hunter repeated, his voice steady with conviction. "I'm yours, too," I whispered back, my heart swelling with love for them both. And in that moment, everything came full circle. I had found my place with them. We had seen each other, and this bond, this love, was all that mattered now. We were three, but we were one, and no matter what the future held, I knew we would face it together. No one could break the bond we shared. It was stronger than anything else in this world. And as we held each other in the quiet aftermath, our breaths still heavy, I knew that this was only the beginning. Chapter 22. Myra. 2 weeks later. I sat at the library desk, staring at the computer's blank screen, feeling the weight of what I had just done. The silence in the room felt deafening, and I couldn't escape the heaviness pressing down on my chest. Everything had been wiped away. My files, my servers, everything was gone. It was as if I was erasing my old self, and part of me wondered whether I had truly left that person behind, or if I'd always carry pieces of her with me. I had spent the last week meticulously formatting everything, ensuring that nothing remained on my computers, my servers, and the cloud storage. I couldn't risk leaving any trace of what I had done in the past. To ensure that no one could ever retrieve what I had removed, I decided to destroy my servers and computers, watching them burn before my eyes. It was liberating in some ways, but it also left a hole inside me, as though I had just cut off a part of myself. It had to be done. I had made my decision. But one question kept circling in my mind: what's next? This was all I had known. For so long, my life had revolved around this work and these routines, and now they were gone. I felt like a part of my identity had disappeared, and for a moment, I was lost. But I knew deep down that this was the right decision. I had made it for my mates Hunter and Jorvik. They were the center of my world now, and I couldn't bear the thought of losing them. The fear of that loss was still so fresh in my mind. I had almost lost them once, and I couldn't let that happen again. My life had been about survival, about doing what I had to do to get by, but now that I had everything to lose, everything changed. My mates had brought me peace. They gave me stability and love, things I never thought I would have. Everything I did from now on would be for them. They deserved that. They had shown me what it meant to belong truly, and I wasn't about to throw that away for some fleeting moment of rebellion or defiance. The mistakes I had made in the past couldn't define me anymore. The past was still haunting me. Every night, I woke up to the same nightmares, and I couldn't escape the images that flashed through my mind. I had tried to hide it from them, my mates, because I didn't want them to know the terrible things I had lived through. They were always so protective, so understanding, but I didn't want to burden them with my past. I sighed deeply, looking out the window. The snow was melting outside, and I could feel the first signs of spring in the air. The days were growing longer, and a new season was just around the corner. It felt like a fresh start, a new beginning. The thought brought me some comfort, though I knew it wasn't going to be an easy journey. I had decided that I wanted to start fresh, not just with my mates, but with myself. The mating bond had been fulfilled, and I could feel them through it. Their emotions and presence were comforting. It was as if I were never truly alone again. Whenever I felt a sense of doubt, I could reach out to them through our bond and feel their love and support. It was a lifeline. But at the same time, the connection was exhausting. The heat was gone now, but the aftereffects lingered in my body. Parts of me still ached, and the pressure of the bond itself was enough to make me feel drained. But I didn't let it show. I focused on the contentment, the peace, the certainty that I had found my place. I wasn't going to throw this all away. I wasn't going to make the same mistakes again. This time, I was determined to give them everything I had, not just take. I had made that promise to them, and I intended to keep it. No more self-sabotage, no more regrets. Just as I was lost in these thoughts, a sharp knock on the door broke my reverie. I blinked, startled, before straightening up in my chair. The door opened, and Hunter walked in, carrying a steaming cup of coffee and a plate of pancakes. "You're up early today, baby girl," he said with a warm smile, setting the food down in front of me. He leaned in, planting a soft kiss on my lips. The moment our lips met, the mark on my breast tingled in response, and I felt a wave of warmth flood through me. I kissed him back, the connection between us intensifying with the slightest touch. He pulled away, his dark eyes looking at me with a mix of concern and affection. "You've been working too hard, haven't you?" he said, his voice soft but firm. I smiled weakly, but the exhaustion hit me hard. My body had been running on fumes for the past few weeks. I wanted to tell him how much I appreciated him being here, how much I needed him, but the words seemed to get stuck in my throat. I didn't want to appear vulnerable, not when he already had so much to take care of. "You're exhausted," Hunter said gently as if reading my thoughts. He could always tell when something was off. It wasn't just the bond, we had come to know each other so well that he could sense when something was wrong, even if I didn't say a word. "I'm fine," I told him, but it was clear from the way I fought back a yawn that I wasn't. Hunter chuckled softly and sat down next to me, pulling me into his lap. I didn't resist. His embrace felt comforting, warm. I could feel his wolf purring in the background, content to be near me. It stirred something profound inside me, something peaceful. "You didn't sleep well last night, baby girl," Hunter said, his fingers gently rubbing my back as I rested my face against his neck. I didn't argue. He was right. The nightmares had kept me up again, but I didn't want to talk about them. Not now. Not when I was so tired. "Yeah, I need some time getting used to sleeping with you two in the same bed," I joked softly, trying to lighten the mood. "Jorvik's snoring and you spreading your limbs really help," I added, making Hunter chuckle. "That bed's too small for the three of us," he said, his voice still warm with affection. "I've already talked to our pack carpenter. She's making a bigger bed for us." "What size?" I teased, my lips curving into a small smile. "King size?" "It's alpha-sized," Hunter replied, his eyes lighting up with humor, and I couldn't help but laugh. It was a small moment of joy, but it felt important. "You're exhausted, baby girl. You should rest," Hunter said again, his voice softening as he stroked my hair. "The heat took a lot out of you, and you still haven't fully recovered from everything." "And so did you too," I reminded him, my tone playful but soft. Hunter chuckled darkly, his grip on me tightening. "And you loved it," he replied, his voice laced with affection. I couldn't deny it. I had loved it more than I had ever thought possible. "Just rest now, Myra," he said, his voice turning serious again. "You never fully recovered after the hospital. And the nightmares. You've been through enough. Let's focus on taking care of you." I sighed deeply, the weight of everything pressing on me. I had spent so much time trying to push it all away, but now, with Hunter holding me, I couldn't ignore it anymore. The anxiety, the pressure, the uncertainty about what the future held, it was all there. I'll try to rest, I murmured, but the words felt heavy on my tongue. I didn't know if I was ready to face everything it fully. The weight of becoming Luna, the responsibility that came with it, still terrified me. Hunter's voice softened again. You don't have to rush into anything, Myra. You've had enough stress. The world can wait. Just focus on healing, and we'll handle the rest. I blinked back tears, trying to push the overwhelming feelings away before Hunter could sense them. I wanted to tell him how much I loved him, how much he meant to me, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I nodded, my throat tight. I've brought you breakfast, Hunter said, his voice full of care as he held up a sandwich. Skip the coffee for now and just rest with Jorvik when he's back. We'll go for a run later, once I'm done with the delegation. I took the sandwich, the scent of the food making me feel a little better, but I was still too tired to enjoy it properly. As I ate, my eyelids grew heavier with every passing second. I'll look forward to it, I murmured, taking a small bite, feeling the exhaustion weigh on me even more. Chapter 23. Hunter. Do you remember anything yet? I asked Jorvik, who was sitting beside me in our office, after returning from a long run. He was focused on the emails from the cyber team regarding the new security updates. I had wanted to spend time with Serafina, but when I found her asleep, I decided to leave her to rest and check in with my brother instead. No, he answered curtly, not needing me to explain what I was referring to. What do you remember? He asked after a brief, strained silence. I've been forcing myself to remember, I replied, frustration creeping into my voice. But so far, no luck. All I can see are flashes of blood, snow, and Myra. I feel the weight of the strongest grief I've ever known, the kind I felt when we lost our parents, followed by an overwhelming rush of anger. That's all I have, no more details. I sighed, turning my attention back to the fragments of memory that slipped through my fingers like sand. Jorvik glanced at me briefly, but then he turned his attention back to the screen. What do you think it could be? He asked, his voice thoughtful but guarded. I don't know, I shrugged. Nothing makes sense. And the more I try to remember, the more it feels like I'm forgetting. I leaned back in my chair, trying to shake off the confusion that had settled into my bones. I've been writing down whatever I can, just to keep track, but it's still unclear. Jorvik nodded absently, his eyes fixed on the screen. A thick silence settled between us as we both lost ourselves in our thoughts, the weight of the situation pressing down on us. Do you think she knows? Jorvik asked after a moment. I believe so, I said with certainty. She knows. Jorvik's brow furrowed. I still don't understand why she destroyed the servers, he said, his voice heavy with confusion. She formatted everything, I told him, leaning forward. She has even started removing things here, and it seems like she's planning to get rid of it all. My voice was laced with concern. The uncertainty about Serafina's actions had been gnawing at me ever since we returned from Curses. But why? Jorvik asked, his frustration growing. This was the question that had been eating at me, too, one I couldn't shake. I don't know, I replied, trying to make sense of it all. She's been acting strangely since we woke up with parts of our memories missing. I think it's tied to what happened that day. Jorvik stared at the screen, lost in thought. Do you think her sister blackmailed her into doing it? He asked, the suggestion hanging in the air. That made me straighten up. I had considered that possibility too, but something didn't feel right about it. I didn't think it was a sufficient reason. Our maid is not the kind to get blackmailed, I said firmly. Still, Erica might have found something to use against her, Jorvik said, his voice low with suspicion. Maybe that's what pushed her to destroy everything? I had thought about that, but I didn't remember seeing Erica at Curses that day. Was Erica there? I asked, my mind working to piece things together. Jorvik fell into a dark silence for a moment, his brow furrowing as he tried to recall. I keep seeing this blurry face, he began slowly. It's a woman's face, not Serafina's, but I can't make out who it is. All I hear is someone laughing a sardonic laugh. My ears ring with it, and then there's Myra's scream. After that, a gunshot. Everything goes dark. The memory left him looking troubled, his hand running through his hair in frustration. I could tell that the pieces didn't fit, and it was frustrating for him not to have the answers. Tell me more, I prompted, hoping the fragments might offer some clarity. It was definitely a feminine laugh, Jorvik continued, and Myra sounded terrified when she screamed. But then came the gunshot, and everything after that is just black. That's all I can remember. I sighed heavily, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on us both. It's all right, brother. Don't strain yourself too much, I said, trying to ease his tension. At the end of the day, we're all safe and back home, and Myra is resting now, recovering from the heat. Jorvik nodded, but didn't seem convinced. I could see it in his eyes. He was still turning things over, still grasping for answers. I didn't blame him. Everything about this felt like an unsolvable riddle. It just doesn't make sense, he muttered. Why would she blow up her entire life's work? She worked so hard, put herself in danger, and now it's all gone. Only she knows, I said, echoing the same thought that had been plaguing me. She definitely knows. Every time I'm with her, I feel the urge to ask her about it, but then I see the nightmares she's been having, and I stop myself. Whatever happened, it's haunting her. Jorvik nodded, his expression somber. She's been having nightmares for a long time, but they're different. I looked at him and nodded in agreement. I can feel it too. They're deeper, more intense. Jorvik's eyes darkened as he stared ahead. We have to talk to her about it. I tried once, I said quietly. She shut me down immediately. She can sense when I'm about to bring it up, and it makes her retreat further into herself. I'm avoiding it for now. We can't keep avoiding it, Jorvik said, frustration creeping into his voice. She's clearly troubled by something, and it's killing me to see her like this. It hurts me too, I muttered, tapping into the bond to check on Myra. She was napping, but I could tell she was calm. There were no signs of distress at the moment. She knows everything that happened that day, and it's tormenting her in her dreams. I second that, Jorvik replied quietly. Do you think that's why she destroyed everything? That she was so scared that she acted in haste? I hope not, I said, my voice full of concern. She might regret it later. I can't imagine blowing up everything I've worked for, even if it meant protecting someone I loved. I'd hate that for her too, Jorvik said, his tone softening. Whatever happened, she has to speak up soon. It's eating away at her. I can feel it through the bond. It's wearing her down. I sighed deeply, troubled. Speaking of the bond, do you feel something's off about it recently? I asked, a concern creeping into my chest. There was something strange, a subtle shift I couldn't put my finger on. Our bond is still new, Jorvik said, his voice thoughtful. It's bound to go through some changes. Feeling odd is normal at this stage. But I get what you mean. I feel it too. I hope it's nothing serious, I said, my voice laced with worry. The last thing I want is for her to end up back in the hospital. What if she's traumatized by the explosion itself? I can't imagine the psychological toll it would have on her. Just then, my thoughts were interrupted as Myra appeared in the doorway, her eyes wide with surprise. You're awake, I exclaimed, my heart leaping as I stood to greet her. Chapter 24. Jorvik. I hope it's nothing serious, I said, leaning back in my chair after listening to Hunter talk. I'd hate for her to have to go back to the hospital. But what if she's traumatized by the explosion itself? I can't imagine how she must feel after everything, especially if she had to witness that again. It's too much for anyone to handle and… I stopped mid-sentence as my head snapped towards the door. My eyes widened when I saw Serafina standing in the doorway, looking pale and worn out. It was clear she had been listening to our conversation. Her tired eyes met mine, and I could sense the weight of everything she was carrying. She looked exhausted, physically and emotionally drained, and I couldn't ignore the pang of concern that shot through me. I quickly tuned into the bond to check her emotional state. There was only exhaustion, but underneath that, I could sense her unease. I can't sleep, she croaked, her voice raspy. She walked into the room slowly, clearly struggling with fatigue, and sat down beside me. But before she could, I pulled her into my lap instead. She sighed deeply in my arms, the tension in her body easing slightly. Hunter leaned in to kiss her gently, and I couldn't help but hum softly, content to see the three of us together. But despite the warmth of our connection, something was still off with her. I could feel it, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. What's wrong, baby girl? I asked softly, nudging my mark on her neck. I could feel her mark tingling in response, the bond between us alive with shared emotions. She sighed again, resting her head on my shoulder. I'm tired, but I can't sleep, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. There was a deep sadness in her words, and it worried me. I'll cuddle with you, Hunter offered, his tone warm and inviting, but she shook her head, leaning back into me again, her gaze drifting to the screens in front of us. I exchanged a glance with my brother, silently wondering how much she had heard of our conversation. I heard you two talking, she said, her words cutting through the silence like a knife. She wasn't even looking at us as she spoke, but I knew she could feel the tension between us. I don't regret blowing up my servers, she added, the words heavy in the air. Hunter and I exchanged another look, both of us unsure of how to respond. My mind raced as I tried to process everything that had happened and all the secrets she was hiding from us. Why? I asked softly, my voice full of concern. I needed to understand why she had made that decision, why she was pushing us away. I had a choice to make, she said, her voice dark and resigned. I made it, and I'll never regret it. So it was your sister who, Hunter began, but Serafina quickly interrupted. No, she cut him off sharply. It doesn't have anything to do with her. You remember what happened that day, Hunter said gently, his words carefully chosen. I could feel Serafina stiffen in my lap, her body tensing as though she was trying to retreat into herself. Maybe, she whispered, her voice barely audible. That wasn't a question, I said firmly. You remember what happened, and I know it's affecting you. The nightmares, the way you're shutting us out, it's all connected. I felt her body tremble slightly at my words, and it hurt to push her, but I couldn't keep seeing her suffer without doing something about it. Tell us the truth, Myra, Hunter urged, his tone soft but insistent. Why can't we remember anything? What happened that day? Who made you destroy your servers? His words hung in the air, and I could see the frustration in his eyes as he tried to get through to her. She stood up abruptly, leaving my lap, and walked over to the window, looking out at the melting snow. Her back was to us, and the silence that followed was thick with unresolved tension. I felt a surge of frustration, but didn't push. She was trying to protect us, but I knew it was eating her alive. I blew up the servers myself, she said, her voice distant. It was a choice I made, and I'll never regret it. If I had to do it again, I would. But what about the other things? Hunter asked, his voice quiet but filled with a need for answers. What happened that day, Myra? We're all in the dark here, and it's tearing us apart. Serafina didn't respond for a long time. The room was still, the only sound the soft rustle of the wind outside. I reached out to the bond again, feeling her emotions crash against me like a wave, confusion, fear, guilt, and pain. I tried to push through the fog of her feelings, but it was overwhelming. I caught glimpses of memories, a woman laughing, a scream, the sharp sound of a gunshot. My chest tightened as I saw a more transparent image of a woman's face, blurry but familiar. Erica. The realization hit me like a blow to the gut. My thoughts were interrupted as Serafina spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. Things happened. I made a promise to someone, and I couldn't keep it. I almost paid the price for that, and I had to negotiate, make decisions I never wanted to make. Promise to whom? I asked, my voice soft, careful. Hunter leaned in, his eyes full of concern. Erica, he asked, his suspicion obvious. No, not her, Serafina replied quickly. I still hate her, but she didn't have anything to do with it. She's not going to bother us anymore. Hunter and I exchanged a glance. Did you kill her? He asked, the question blunt but necessary. No, Serafina replied with a shake of her head. She's still alive somewhere, but she won't bother us. The servers are gone, and with them, everything that could have been used against us. It's all gone now. I'm leaving it behind. It's not worth it anymore. I've got too much to lose now. Her words echoed in my mind as I processed everything that had happened. Someone else was involved, someone besides Erica. And Serafina had destroyed the servers to protect us, as well as herself. But there was still so much we didn't know. Why don't we remember anything? Hunter asked, his voice filled with frustration. Part of the negotiations, she shrugged, her voice distant again. You don't need to know. Please don't remember. But why? Hunter asked again, his voice thick with emotion. Why should we live in the dark while you suffer? It was part of the punishment for breaking my promise, she sniffed, tears welling in her eyes. I'll tell you someday, but not now. It's just, everything is too much right now. Tell us when you're ready, baby girl, I said gently, moving to stand beside her. You don't have to hide from us. We're here for you, no matter what. She wiped away a tear, her face pained. I'm a terrible mate, she whispered. I shook my head, pulling her close. You're not. You're doing the best you can, and that's all we can ask for. Hunter stepped closer, his hand resting on her shoulder. We'll get through this together. Just take your time. We'll be here when you're ready to talk. Chapter 25. Myra. I'm such a terrible mate. The words spilled out before I could stop them. I felt a surge of frustration and helplessness. For the past few days, everything had felt out of balance, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was failing them. The truth was, I didn't know how to handle everything that had happened, how to process everything inside me. I wanted to have an honest conversation with Hunter and Jorvik to explain how I felt. But for some reason, the words were getting stuck in my throat. My emotions had been all over the place lately. Was this the aftermath of the heat, or was it something else? I wasn't sure anymore. I had asked myself that question over and over, trying to make sense of everything. This couldn't just be from the heat. It didn't feel like that. My wolf would have told me if it was something to do with the bond, but there was something else. Something more profound that I couldn't grasp. No, you're not, Hunter said sharply, pulling me closer into his embrace. His arms were warm, firm, and grounding. You're the best thing that happened to us, Jorvik added, his voice filled with sincerity as he moved to sit beside me, gently touching my arm. His touch sent a warm, comforting sensation through my body, like a soft spark of reassurance. I wanted to believe them. I truly did. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't good enough for them. I had caused them so much trouble already. I had taken and taken from them, and I hadn't done enough to give back. You two are just saying that to make me feel better, I said, my voice trembling. I was trying to keep it together, but my emotions kept threatening to break free. I've troubled you both so much. I feel like I don't belong here. It was all worth it, Jorvik said, cutting through my doubts. At the end of the day, we're glad you're here with us. This is what we wanted, and we finally have it. This is what matters now. Yes, this is all that matters to us, Hunter added, his voice steady and filled with conviction. What has happened has happened. It's in the past. I'm looking forward to moving ahead, starting fresh, and building a future with you. I wanted to believe them, but it was hard to let go of the guilt that clung to me. I feel like I'm not doing enough for you too, I admitted, my voice small. I sniffed, trying to push back the tears. My heart was heavy, and I couldn't seem to escape the weight of it all. What does enough mean for you? Hunter asked, his voice quiet, his tone inviting me to share more. I don't know, I whispered, the tears threatening again. Maybe I should take on more pack responsibilities, or help you two more, care for you both better. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, but I feel like I'm not doing enough. Your presence is more than enough for us, baby girl, Jorvik said softly, his voice husky as he kissed my cheek, sending a ripple of warmth through my chest. It makes our day just to see you, hold you, love you, and take care of you. Can't you see? I closed my eyes, trying to process his words. But the overwhelming feelings of not being enough continued to gnaw at me. I feel like I don't deserve this, I responded softly, my voice barely above a whisper. I want to prove to you that I deserve this kind of love and care. You don't have to prove anything to anybody, Hunter said gently but firmly. You're enough just as you are. You've always been enough for us, Myra. His words broke something inside me. The dam I'd been holding up finally cracked, and I felt the tears spill out uncontrollably. It was like I had been holding on to so much, and now, with them telling me it was okay, I couldn't hold back anymore. He's right, Jorvik added, his voice filled with affection as he kissed my cheek again. You're enough, just the way you are. We don't need you to prove anything to us. We need you to be you. You're our amazing, strong, and loving mate, and we wouldn't change anything about you. We love it all, the good, the bad, the everything," Hunter said, his voice warm with tenderness. The words were too much, and I wanted to wail like a child, overwhelmed by their unconditional love. "I promise I'll try to be better for you too," I said, my voice thick with emotion, tears streaming down my face. "I promise to honor you both by being the best Luna I can be. I want to do better. I want to prove to you that I'm worthy of everything you've given me. The only thing we want from you, baby girl, is to rest and recover," Jorvik said, his voice gentle but firm. "You've had it rough. It's okay. You don't need to rush into anything right now. Not that we'll allow you to work in this state," Hunter added with a soft chuckle. "Our pack has been without a Luna for years. They can wait another year for you to recover completely and feel better." "I don't deserve this," I whispered, feeling the weight of my past mistakes pressing down on me. "You do," Jorvik said softly, his voice thick with sincerity. "You deserve all of this and more." "I'm not used to this," I said, the weight of it all settling on me. "I'm used to earning my keep, being competent, looking out only for myself. I've always been selfish." I let out a deep sigh, a sad chuckle escaping me. "Did I ever tell you too that I once prayed to the moon goddess for a mate? Doesn't everyone pray to the moon goddess for a mate?" Hunter asked, shrugging slightly, not fully understanding what I meant. "I remember you mentioning it in passing," Jorvik said, his voice thoughtful. "But yeah, we prayed for a mate too." I chuckled despite myself. "I don't mean praying to the moon goddess for a mate," I said quietly. "I summoned the moon goddess." They both fell silent for a moment, processing what I had said. My heart thudded in my chest, and I could feel the weight of my confession. This was something I had never told anyone, not even them. "I summoned the moon goddess," I repeated softly, as if to make sure I wasn't dreaming. "And I asked for a lot of things, many things. And when I saw Jorvik, well, things happened. Things I shouldn't have done." "It's okay, baby girl," Jorvik assured me, his voice soft and understanding as he pulled me closer. "You had your reasons." "He's right," Hunter said, his voice filled with kindness. "But how did you summon her?" "Well, I bought a spell from the Weathered Witches," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I asked for a mate and I messed up. I didn't realize how badly I could mess things up." Hunter frowned, his expression troubled. "Is this somehow related to our missing memories?" he asked, and I felt a rush of tension in my chest. The brothers exchanged a look, and I knew they were starting to piece things together. I stayed silent, unsure how to answer. The truth was painful, and I wasn't ready to face it. "Whatever happened," Jorvik said gently, his voice filled with reassurance, "we trust you, Myra. We're glad you summoned the goddess. It led us to you, and we're here now. If I could go back in time, I'd have stayed with you that night," I whispered, my heart filled with regret. "And I would have met Hunter too. It would have been so good. You want to play that out?" Hunter asked with a smile, his voice playful but still full of affection. I chuckled, despite the tears still streaming down my face. "Does that mean I get to flirt with Orion too?" Both of them laughed, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the weight on my chest lightened. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for sure: I had found my place with them. "You want to play, baby girl?" Jorvik said, his voice dark with playful intent. "We can play. All you have to do is ask," Hunter added, and suddenly, I was surrounded by both of them. My back was pressed against Jorvik's chest, and my front was pressed against Hunter's. The closeness felt natural, and the bond between us sparked to life. The marks on my body tingled with pleasure, and I could feel my wolf stirring within me. "Then I'm asking you two to allow me to return every favor you've done for me," I said, my voice sincere. "I'm asking you to let me prove to you that I'm worthy of being your mate. I'm asking you to let me serve you with everything I have." Jorvik growled low in his throat, his grip tightening around me. "We don't want anything from you, Myra," he said firmly. "We want you. We want your love," Hunter added, his smile warm and genuine. "Then I promise to love you both with an unwavering dedication," I swore, my heart full. "I promise to give back everything I've taken. I promise to honor and protect you with everything I have. I promise to be the best mate I can be. I've already promised you that we'll take care of you no matter what, Jorvik whispered, his voice thick with emotion. I love you, Myra. I love you too, my pussy cat, Hunter smiled, pecking my lips. And I'll ask Orion what kind of casket he likes, he added, making us all burst into laughter. In that moment, I knew that we were going to be okay. No matter what happened, we had each other, and that was all that mattered. Epilogue. Myra. 5 years later. What did you get? I asked Orion over the comm, keeping my focus on the lines of code streaming across the computer screen. Hunter, standing close beside me, leaned in to listen to the conversation. I switched it to speaker mode, the click of the button echoing in the room. Not a single one alive. They took themselves out before we got here, Orion's voice crackled through the comm, laced with exhaustion and frustration. In the background, I could hear the sounds of the raid team scouring the compound, tearing through it in search of whatever the Horde scientists had left behind. We'd been hunting them for months. After countless false leads, this was the breakthrough we'd been waiting for. We finally found their location, but there was something off about the whole situation. That's what I thought, Hunter murmured beside me, his voice tinged with the kind of frustration that only a long, drawn-out chase could cause. Someone tipped them. What about their computers? Did they destroy everything? I'm still having trouble cracking this code, I asked, my eyes scanning the lines of code on my screen. The Horde scientists had been incredibly elusive, always managing to cover their tracks. But I had found one of their dealers' computers, which led us here. And now, it seemed like I was this close to finding the answers. They destroyed most of them, but we've got one intact. You should be able to get something from it, Orion replied. The sounds of the raid team working grew louder, and I could hear the unmistakable noise of machinery being ripped apart. Great. Bring it over. I want to see what kind of mess they were making, I said, my voice steady, though the unease in my chest was growing. Yes. We're taking them down, holy shit. Fuck this. Fuck no. I'm out. Orion's screams cut through the comms, followed by a gagging sound. The line went silent, and I felt a knot of dread in my stomach instantly. I looked at Hunter, confusion and concern in my eyes. Hunter grabbed the comm from me in a flash. Orion, what's going on? His voice was urgent, sharp with worry. I felt a wave of nausea threaten to rise again, and without thinking, Hunter handed me a vomit bucket. I'm fine, I groaned, pushing it away, but he wasn't having it. No, keep this. I don't want you throwing up on the keyboards again. Cleaning it was a pain last time, Hunter insisted, his tone firm. I scowled at him but took the bucket, knowing he was only looking out for me. I'm in my second trimester, I hissed, irritated, but Hunter remained unfazed. The memory of my previous pregnancy debacles, especially the disaster I made with the keyboards, was too fresh in his mind. Orion, talk to us. Hunter pressed, his voice now tinged with concern. I just walked into the basement, Orion said, his voice thick with terror. And it's filled with stuff. The dread in my chest tightened, and I exchanged a glance with Hunter. What stuff? I asked, my stomach already beginning to twist in anxiety. Bodies, Orion replied, sounding like he might throw up again. Bodies of women and children. All cut up and sewn together. They were trying to make Frankenstein's creations of sorts. Vera's estimating they were trying to build bioweapons. I felt the color drain from my face as Hunter's hand found mine. The warmth of his touch did little to calm the sick feeling in my gut. Send me pictures, Hunter demanded, cutting the calm short. Myra, you need to stay away from this. I don't want you seeing what's down there. I want to see, I said firmly, pulling my hand away and leaning forward, despite the sick feeling in my stomach. I had spent months tracking these scientists, and I had to see it for myself. I couldn't just ignore the horrible reality of what they had done. Myra, Hunter said, his voice soft but filled with concern. Please, not in your state. You've done everything, and this isn't something you need to see. You're pregnant, and this pregnancy is already taking a toll on you. I don't want you to see the aftermath of their work. It could hurt you more than you realize. I really want to see, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos in my mind. But even as I spoke, a part of me was hesitating. I have 2 kids already. Could I bear seeing bodies, especially of children? Was this something I could handle? Hunter squeezed my hand. You don't need to do this, Myra. You've given so much already. All right, I sighed, my shoulders slumping. I had to admit, Hunter was right. This pregnancy was exhausting, and this third trimester was proving to be the hardest. I wasn't sure if I could handle seeing the gore, especially after what Orion had described. I'll go check on the boys and see if Jorvik's back from the pack meeting, I said, my mind already turning to other things. The idea of the horrific scene Orion had described was already making my stomach churn. You'll tell me everything, right? Of course I will, Hunter promised, his lips brushing mine for a quick kiss. The mark on my breast sizzled at his touch, and my heart swelled with warmth. But the urgency of the situation made it hard to focus. You've been up since 6 in the morning and you haven't had a nap. You need rest, Hunter urged, his tone softer now, the weight of his concern visible. I don't feel like sleeping, I told him, though I wasn't sure I meant it. The exhaustion was pulling at me, but there were too many thoughts swirling in my head. But I'll see. What do you want for lunch? Whatever you and Angela decide, he said, a small smile tugging at his lips. But please go rest. You've earned it. Orion sent me a bunch of pictures, and I'm going to look at them. All right, I nodded and made my way out of the office, feeling a sense of unease settle in my chest. Hunter clearly didn't want me involved, but my mind was already racing with the horrifying possibilities of what Orion had seen. I walked down the hall, my feet heavy as I made my way to the playroom. I needed a distraction, something to pull me away from the grisly images I could feel creeping into my mind. I gently knocked on the door before stepping inside. Luna, Freya greeted me warmly, her voice full of quiet respect. Ralph, my eldest son, was asleep on the floor while Freya rocked Ares to sleep in her arms. I smiled at the sight of my boys. Let them sleep here, I said, feeling the tension ease from my body as I watched them. It's easier for me to check on them if they're close. Of course, Freya agreed, looking at my bump with a knowing smile. Are you feeling okay today, Luna? I'm doing oddly fine, I replied, trying to keep the worry from my voice. The doctor said you should come in tomorrow for an ultrasound, Freya reminded me, her tone gentle but firm. I'll go, I said absently. I couldn't help but wonder if this pregnancy would be any different from the others. I hoped it was a girl, like Freya, Jorvik, and Hunter. But deep down, I wondered if we were destined for another boy. Maybe this one will be a girl, Freya said with a soft smile. You're glowing. Isn't it supposed to be the opposite? I joked, patting my bump. I've heard the girls steal their mom's beauty. No, that's nonsense, Freya chuckled. I think it'll be a girl. The alphas would be thrilled. I hope so, I smiled softly, my heart fluttering with the thought. But whatever we have, I'll be happy. I entered the kitchen and made myself a smoothie, trying to distract myself from the terrible thoughts swirling in my head. I hadn't expected to be so preoccupied with what I had heard. I didn't even hear Jorvik come in. Before I could turn around, he wrapped his arms around me and pulled me close, showering me with kisses. My heart skipped a beat, and I melted into his embrace. I missed you so much, I whispered, turning in his arms to kiss him deeply. I'm sorry to keep you waiting, he said, his voice filled with affection as he kissed me more. What's going on with the raid? Jorvik asked, pulling back slightly, concern etched on his face. We found the lab, I began, but I couldn't bring myself to tell him everything just yet. But there's a lot of bodies. Orion's been trying to process it all. I'm going to see for myself, Jorvik said, determination flashing in his eyes. But first, how are you doing? I'll be all right, I said, my voice steady but heavy. I'll be fine. But we need to figure out who tipped them off. I'll take care of it, Jorvik promised, his hand moving to my bump. I nodded, grateful for his strength. But as I looked at him, I couldn't shake the feeling that things were far from over. The end.